And hello and welcome, everybody. This is episode 202, season 5. I cannot believe that we're in season 5 already of this amazing podcast. I believe that we should be coming on live here in just a moment. At least I hope so. Are we live yet, guys?
Yep,
Because we
it's
are
live.
live. Okay, good. It's always nice to know when we're live, so I'm just not yapping away trying to bleed off some time until we do go live. Well, welcome everybody. It is season 5, episode 202. We got Brian Goff today. He's going to be talking about how the FAA could be regulating our sport really soon because of the Hamas thing. We're going to be talking about a bunch of wings and paramotors and fun stuff. So make sure you stick around. We're going to say hello to everybody in the chat, or actually not in the chat, but our panel here. My name is Sean Symons, PPG Grandpa. You can always find me at iflyparamotors.com. But let's go ahead and talk to Linda Anderson. My goodness. I see you in the background with your hand up still. How you doing, Linda? Good to see
I
you.
know. I love this picture. It's so fun. Yeah, every time we get like, man, I want to fly this and that, and then I look at this picture and then I get all happy again. But welcome everybody. It's Monday night. Thanks for joining us, all my chatters and listeners and watchers and all that stuff. The only place to be is right here on Monday night with us. And if y'all snowed in, you can be snowed in with us. We're going to have a great show tonight.
Yeah.
So just sit back and relax. And if you want to be a guest on my show like Brian, just go to paramotoring-related.com. It'll take you right to my Facebook page and just say, hey, I want to be on your show. So don't forget to check out my paramotoring-related.com website. It's pretty dang cool. So
Yes.
sit back
Yes,
and
it is.
enjoy. Thanks, everybody.
Yay, and the pom-poms too. Yeah, so this is gonna be really interesting tonight. We're actually snowed in over here also. I know that Linda's snowed in. I think Kevin said he's snowed in. I guess we can talk more to Kevin real quick. Kevin, are you snowed in? Welcome to the show. Glad that you're here. This was your weekend to be over here flying too.
Yeah, and it snowed and snowed me out. So I'll have to come up with another weekend to come over there. But snowed in, schools are closed for the next 2 days, and it's cold. My kids have been out playing in it, but I've been in the house.
I hear you. I don't want to be out there. My dogs want to run out there, but I'm like, I don't have that fur coat like you do. But
No,
Kevin, welcome to the show. Glad that you're here. And you are also our new president of the nonprofit Run to the Sky. So thank you, Mr. President.
yes, sir.
All right. We got Will Fly from willflyppg.com. What's up, buddy?
Hey man, what's up? And Kevin, that's no excuse.
Ah!
But I'm bummed.
Yeah, that's a good
No
one.
excuse.
No, it's good to be here. No snow in Raleigh. It's supposed to get cold though. I mean, whatever you're getting your way is apparently heading ours, but I don't think we're gonna get any snow. But we were talking, I don't know, I haven't flown in since like over a month because of the cold, what I would consider cold weather flying. Man, oh man. I don't know how they do it up north. I really don't. But anyways, it's good to be here. You want to check out my videos, you can look me up on YouTube, Will Fly, or you can just go to willflyppg.com. Back to you, Sean.
Well, thank you very much. It's always good to come back to me. And we got one more person, Scuba Steve. He has not only is he here on our show on Mondays, but he also has his very own podcast on Fridays, which I think I only went to once. So I'm sorry about that. But tell us a little bit about that and welcome to the show, buddy.
I would tell you about it, but since you don't ever watch it, it really doesn't matter now, does it?
Oh,
um,
Shots
yeah,
fired.
I do a show. Sean don't watch it. Who cares? Anybody that wants to see it comes, they come watch. So that's all that matters. We got a couple of flurries this morning. From what I understand, the flurries got bigger, but I went to sleep because we had one of those floater days. We could either take today off or the 19th of February. I was like, no, I'll make it today. So that's what I did. And here we are talking to Mr. Goff, which I swore I heard his name at a fly-in. Now, it may not have been your name. Does he train people?
Was it good or bad?
It was bad because they were like, man, he's such a pothole. I mean, he trains good, but he's a I'm like, well, hey, sometimes you got to be that way to get stuff done, I guess. So,
It must not have been Brian.
it must not have been okay.
Yeah, because this guy is absolutely incredible. Welcome, Brian
Okay.
Goff, to the show.
Maybe
We
it
definitely
was.
appreciate you jumping in here.
Yeah.
Just because, there's not a lot of people that do know you, but you've been flying for an awfully long time. You've been around the sport and you got some inside knowledge of the FAA and the things that are coming out over at the Mac Pair and more cool stuff. But for those of you that don't know Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into paramotoring.
So I've been flying paramotors for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I've been training for 15. I got into paramotoring. I flew helicopters as a contractor for a long time. And I was in 2 pretty severe crashes, got out of helicopters and kind of just looked for something to get back in the air and got back into paramotoring. And then once I got into paramotoring, just got hooked. Like to go from a twin turbine, 1,800 an hour operation to 93 and AMSOIL. you can't beat it. So I always I love people that would always be like, hey, let's fly out. Like I used to live in Massachusetts and they'd be like, let's fly out to the Cape for lunch. And I'm like, that's a $2,000 cheeseburger that you're going to eat. If you want to split that, I'll be more than happy to fly out there. So I've been doing that. And then I got into through the school that I went to I trained with Michael O'Daniel, which was part of the Eric Dufour crew down in Florida. And Michael, about in 2018? 2018 was killed in Columbia, South America. He was free flying and he got caught up on the side of a mountain. So I trained with Michael for years. I continued to help Michael. And then he kind of encouraged me to get into training. I taught helicopters for a long time and just had no interest in training because I saw the drama and all the crazy Facebook, Instagram stuff that would go on in the paramotor world. And I was like, I had no interest in getting into this. And then I just kept getting sucked into training, and I got to a point where I had 50, 60 people that I had going at a time, and I would do a year school, and it's just never stopped. Every time I walked away from it twice, and within 2 years I was right back in it again. So
You walked out of
I walked out of training. Yeah, I wrapped up all my students and I decided I wasn't going to do it anymore, and within 2 years I was back to training again. So every time I'll try to get out of it and get away from it, I always get sucked back into it. So we moved to Pennsylvania because we had kids. We're in our late mid 40s, and we have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I had no interest in training. And a guy called me locally that found my information off the website and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, I'm a pilot, I'm this, I'm that. And I was like, I'll meet you at the field, I'll kind of size you up and see what kind of shape you're in. And that was back in the beginning of 2019. It was the spring of 2019, and 265 people later, we're going into another year of training. So
that's pretty awesome. Before we go on, oh, Jim's here. Hey, Jim, with your maple syrup smelling money. Glad that you're here, buddy. Anybody on the panel have any questions before I start rattling off any questions, or any questions in the super chat yet?
Now the training thing that he's talking about. So he trains paramotor pilots. He's been doing that 15 years, or is that what he's
doing? I've been training for 15 years. So I was Paraflight has been, so I registered Paraflight in Northern Virginia, but I was working with Michael O'Daniel under Paramotoring USA. And he was in the DC metro market. So we basically have the DC Northern Virginia market. So we have just under 12 million people that we fish from. So we have 160 acres in Bealton, Virginia. It's called the Flying Circus Aerodrome. So it's actually on Sunday, it's the oldest World War II air show on the planet that still operates. You can Google it. It's called the Flying Circus Aerodrome. It's in Bealton, Virginia.
I'm in Virginia, but
where are you?
I'm on the east. I'm right by Virginia Beach, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I worked with the Navy down there. We were in Sandbridge. We did a lot of stuff up at Oceana, Sandbridge, and Orange. I think it's Orange Airport. It's north, Blackwater Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just off of Blackwater Road.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
All right.
No
I
fly
I know
zone.
a lot of people want to probably know about this regulation of uh, our rules and regulations that we have, especially with since that Hamas thing. It sounds like you got a couple of insights of what could be coming around. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what happened after the Hamas thing? Obviously, that put paramotoring like really on the radar. I mean, we got on the radar because people would basically piss people off. You know, they're flying over farms, they're flying over houses, and they're buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. They get reported, stuff like that. So people are aware of what paramotoring is. Obviously, with the Tucker, community, he has exploded the awareness of what we do and the sport and stuff like that. So, and then the Hamas thing happened. And so the military has been involved with paramotoring for quite a while. So when the Hamas thing happened, that kind of put the capabilities of the paramotoring world on the radar as far as what you could do with a paramotor. So the talks it's kind of like a drone, basically like a drone certification. There's going to be like a test that you'll do online. It's not going to be anything that you're doing formally with an inspector or instructor or anything like that. It's just going to be something that's kind of be an online course. But to me, what I'm gathering is what they're more interested in is getting your name, your birth date, your social to run you through the system to make sure that you don't have any affiliations with any organizations that they're going to be concerned about that are going to red flag you. I don't necessarily think it's going to affect what we do. It's just going to be like kind of the drone world. It's going to bring more awareness to the community. So when people that are not following the rules or piss people off because they're flying low or buzzing houses over and over and over again, it's going to be a little easier to, I think, get rid of those people and filter them out or pinpoint them. The problem again with paramotoring is like, I love people that'll send me a picture and they'll be like, hey, is this one of your students? And I'm like, dude, from 500 feet, everybody looks the same. Like it doesn't matter what motor you're on, you can't see the person. So
That's the other thing. Are they going to make us put like an N identifier on our wings so they can tell who it is in the air from the ground?
I don't know. I mean, even if they did, I mean, you look at a Quicksilver that flies over you at 1,000 feet. I mean, can you even see the N number? You know what I mean? Unless you got a high power zoom.
Right.
Like you can't, even if you zoom in on your iPhone and HD, like it's still not clear enough to read. So, like over in Europe, they have those numbers on a lot of the gliders and stuff like that. And they have so I don't know like to what extent it's going to happen, but it's definitely on the radar. Like they're fully aware of the capabilities and what could happen and the stealthiness of it. So, like I said, I think they're going to be more interested in schools running names. So like the guys that are training at your local Walmart parking lot, those are the guys that are going to get, scrubbed out real quick. The schools that are like actually like, registered, they have a business, they've got an airport that they're using. Like I don't think those guys are going to have problems. They're just going to run students just through a system. Like, it's like going and getting a gun. You're going to run your background through a system and they're going to, determine whether, you're going to be approved or not to do the training.
Approved or not to do the training for the instructors or for the students?
For the student. So it'll give you a green light or a red light. So if there's anything that pops up that you've been flagged for, like if you had any type of interactive with any type of organizations that's red flagged by the government, I mean, you could pursue it. I mean, you could go out, you could train it, but you're probably going to end up getting either severely penalized or jail time. I mean, they'll throw some extreme, offense out there that it'll avoid whoever, they get tangled with and get involved with them.
Interesting. Any questions on the panel, or did we get any questions in the super chat yet? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, with the pilot's license, they don't do a background check on you, do you? Do they?
No, but I mean, you're right. The thing with a pilot's license is, I mean, you're registered, right? I mean, you're filling out a ton of paperwork for the FAA. So, I mean, they're not doing a background check on you. And I'm not saying they're doing a background check on you, but they've got your name, your date of birth, your social security number. They've got, who you're training with, your instructor, the N number of the aircraft. So, I mean, you're not going to get away with anything. I mean, if you rent an aircraft and you went off the radar in Bermuda Triangle, they know that, where you were on the radar and who you were in the airplane. So I think that's more of what they're getting at. They're not, they're not running a background as much as just if you have any affiliations or you've been flagged for anything, that could tie into, getting into something that could get you in trouble.
Yeah, it's like a registration more than
Yeah.
anything.
It's like a
That's
drone. It's like a drone license, basically. I mean, I have a drone license, and I mean, it was like, like 50 questions, I think is what it was. I mean, it was a while ago that I did it. So it was just online. It was just a program online. To me, it reminded me of the boater license, like in Virginia, we were on Lake Anna, and you got the boating license to operate the Coast Guard license. You go through that little program that they do. That's kind of what I think is what they'll end up doing.
Well, there's a lot of, I mean, ultralights is just anything that's powered under 254 pounds. So, you can have fixed wing ultralights, you can have PPCs and Gs, you can have, anything that flies under 254 pounds, including I've seen some, that even are drone-ish, right? Where you can sit down and got a bunch of drone propellers, and it kind of looks like a huge drone. So, I mean, when it comes down to something like this, if somebody wants to do something bad, they can do it bad in ultralight.
Anything.
And anything. I mean, you can go and build anything you want to, and you don't need to be trained anywhere either. I mean, just any type of background, you can make an airplane or make
Sure.
something that flies, so.
The guy landed a gyrocopter on the White House lawn, and they had no idea that he was coming in with all of that technology that they have. We actually did a flight from Quantico up to Andrews. They were testing a radar system to see if they could pick up paramotors. We had 4 paramotors, foot launch. We had 1 person on a trike, and then we had 2 PPCs. And we got escorted up the river by a helicopter, and they were running these radar tests to see if they could pick us up. And they could see like blobs of something. They couldn't identify what we were. And then that dude, like, I don't know, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that landed the gyrocopter on the lawn, and they had no idea that he came down the Potomac River. So yeah, you're right. I mean, honestly, the technology in drones are pretty insane. Like we have where we are out at Shoestring. I don't know if they come out of Dover, Delaware, or if they come out of like Fort Meade or down towards like DC, but we've had drones that they look like big RC jets that are, you see them, they're moving quick. But they're flown remotely from, 400 miles away, 300 miles away. We reported it, and they were like, oh yeah, it's just drone activity. There's, they didn't put a drone tam on the TFRs on any of the sites, so we didn't know about it. But they were pretty low. I mean, they weren't tangling with us, but we could easily see what they were, and that they were not manned. They were unmanned. So
the radar actually did provide an echo from a paramotor.
It didn't give them it just basically was like a hot air balloon. It was like a blob on the radar.
So they could see something.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously no transponder or anything. So
no. Nope.
Well, they could tell something was there though. So I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
And they could tell its speed.
And it would depend on your height as well.
Yeah. And this was 10 years ago. So I'm sure that they've improved on whatever they were testing at that
How high
point.
were you guys?
We were at like 2,200 feet. And the reason we were at 2,200 feet is because so if you look at the Potomac and you fly out, there's Reagan National Airport, there's Alexandria, Virginia, and then Reagan National, which is right on the river. And then directly across the river is like, you got the Washington Monument, the White House, and then Andrews is you go off to the right, like where the Woodrow Wilson Bridge is. So we were on the Maryland side at like 2220, and we were range at 2,100 feet. We were up and down, kind of flying the coast because there was not a lot of outs. So we went into that altitude. We decided to fly at that altitude so that if the motors quit, we could get over to some type of farmland to get and not go into the river. So, but what was interesting is as we were coming up, there were planes coming into Reagan National because they were landing from the south because the winds were coming out of the north. So it was wild. The fact that they had, you had commercial jets, that were, within a mile of where you were, just watching them come in on the left-hand side. And it's just one after the other. It was neat. And then, they didn't give us a whole lot of information other than, yeah, you guys look like, basically they said we look like birds. So I don't know what a bird looks like on a radar because I don't look at radars, but they definitely picked up that there was something there.
It's us flying like a bird. So
Yeah.
are you by
Right.
DC? Are you close to DC? Isn't there a lot of air for air?
Yeah, I live in Lancaster, PA now. So like I used to live in
Oh.
Arlington, Virginia. So the Flying Circus where we teach in Bealdton, that's our training field. It's 160 acres. So I have that location, and then the school up here in PA at Shoestring Airport. And then we go down to Newbern. Newbern, we have probably the coolest training facility in the world in Newbern. We have a 3,000 acre sod farm with a 45-person dormitory on site. The problem is even in Newbern, all these 2-week programs, or that we scheduled a couple of trainings, and we get 4 or 5 days out of it, and the weather goes to crap. So then we end up canceling it, and we just stopped doing that stuff because we get too many people that take time off of work and Airbnb. They have kids, so we just kind of stopped with the 2-week-long stuff, and just kind of do the weekend warrior is what we call it, where and then we'll do if the weather's crappy up here in the summer, we'll go down the Newbern for like 4 or 5 days. If it's good Wednesday through Sunday, or I'm sorry, Wednesday through Sunday, we'll go down there and train if the weather permits it. So we kind of bounce up and down the coast, and then anybody that's available that can do it, we invite them along.
Okay, pretty interesting. So, with all the stuff with Hamas, paramotors and things like that, making it to where we could have something that can ping, something like a ADS-B out or something like that, that's similar, but something that can show that we're there, especially to other airplanes that are flying around, I think would be beneficial, in the long run. I mean, obviously don't require them, because I don't want more requirements, but having the ability to be able to ping yourself wherever you are, especially when you have other air traffic, would be pretty beneficial. What do you think about that? Do you think that will ever be part of regulations in the future?
I don't think so. I mean, they do have ADS-B. You can get ADS. There was a gentleman at Bad Apples last year. He showed me I have videos of it on my phone. He has the whole ADS-B thing set up on I think it was on a Fresh Breeze unit. And I was looking at it, and the amount of wires that dude had wrapped around a paramotor. I'm like, all you need to do is have one mishap, and just you're catching all that electrical. So if they had something that was on your phone that you could just transpond off your phone, and they do have Gaggle. I think if they did something on Gaggle, or ForeFlight has some stuff that they can track.
I mean, with all the technology we have now, I was going to say, all they need is an app on your phone that connects with the tower that's close by and tells them, hey, you're in the air at whatever altitude. Would be really simple to make, and they just need to put something at the airport to identify us, and we'd be good.
Yeah,
I don't see that, but instead of ADS-B, which is still way too expensive for a normal paramotor pilot, they need something for the cell phone, because most people has a cell phone, and just done.
Yeah, and even the ADS-B, I mean, they're down to like $1,200 for an ADS-B system, but it's not even and I don't think it's the cost a lot for a lot of people. It's going through and hooking it up, like the battery that you need, and all the little there's all these little like resistors, transponders that they have connected to it, and they solder it, and it's like they run the antenna up the line, sometimes the glider, and it's just like, dude. Wow. You got to you got to MacGyver that together, I think, to make it work like efficient. Now, if you're going to be a knucklehead and try to fly in, that airspace, if you're going to fly in Class B airspace like DC, or, if you're going to go into the, and file a flight plan, or, because you want to go through something like that, you're probably going to have the know-how and the, to do all that stuff if you're going to, try to fly in that type of airspace. But for the most of us, I mean, all we care about is kicking corn and soybeans. It's like,
yeah, I want the exact opposite. I want to stay away from the big
right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I know with the drones, they do have the ADS-B on the drones, but I think it's just ADS-B in?
Yeah.
Do they have out also on the big drones, or is it just in and then software that can kind of do it out? Do you know anything about that?
Depends on your pocketbook. I think if you go deep enough in your pocketbook, you can put anything you want on them now. Like I said, the paramotor one, the unit for the paramotor is only about 3 inches long. It's maybe 2 inches by 3 inches long. So you can easily throw that on a drone, like an Inspire, a DJI Inspire that holds like a, like an 8K camera, like a Canon camera. You
Right.
can really put that on there. It's not like it's gonna kill your battery or anything like that because of the weight.
It's a transceiver?
Yeah, you can I can tell you, hold on.
Just the receiver.
Yeah.
Because I know, yeah, because pretty much anything you can get an ADS-B in, it's just paying out from where you are. That's the problem, unfortunately, is that's where the money is. Because like you said, ForeFlight has it, the ADS-B in.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm looking up the site. Let me see if I can find it.
But I also know too that the ones for the drones are for unmanned, and you're not allowed to put an unmanned ADS-B on something that's manned, like ultralight.
Let me see. These are expensive ones, but here's one here that's the same size. It's by Aircraft Spruce. It's 2,000. It's $2,100. It's tail beacon nav light ADS-B out TSO transponder. It's two by 4. That's how big it is. 2 inches by 4 inches. It's super small.
Yeah, and if they got something that's like that you can plug in and charge up, I mean, we're only out there flying for maybe 3 hours max,
Yeah.
So any type of, power thing that we can put on it, kind of like with with our GoPros, we can extend our GoPro batteries with battery pack. So see, that's one thing I think will eventually happen. We're gonna have to have some sort of ADS-B in and out, something like that, or at least something that pings outward, and probably it's going to go through Gaggle, I would assume, or something like that you can open up. Well, Gaggle's very popular. Already now you can see where other airplanes are in your vicinity. It's helped me out, saved me a bunch of times.
Yeah, I love Gaggle. The thing that I found, we were at Purdon's fly-in, and we flew a lot of hours at Purdon's fly-in. And the thing about Gaggle is it worked about 50% of the time. Like, it would just fall off. Like, it would just stop, and it would never reconnect again unless I looked my phone out and started it back up again. But when it does work, it works well. I mean, it's an awesome app. So, and even when we fly local here, I would say maybe 50 to 60% of the time it's good, and then it just stops working, and then it just doesn't reconnect. So like PPG Flyer, stuff like that, like I find if that gets disconnected, it reconnects, and there's a gap where it left off, and then where you started back up again, and it records that information. But my Gaggle stuff, it lost everything in that window that it shut from where it shut off until we landed. Or I started back up.
I think Gaggle gets confused when there's a lot of pilots in the air.
Yeah.
And they're on the same group, because I've never have any troubles with Gaggle except if I go to a fly-in.
Yeah. And see, we always have like 40, like in October, we had like 42 people show up where we were flying at. So, and that's the last time that I used it, and it dropped. It recorded for about 30 minutes, and we were all in one group going in all the same direction, because we did like a 50-mile cross country, and then about 20-30 minutes in, it stopped. But that makes sense. You're right. That's every time that I've been Bad Apples, Purdon's, out at Moe's, the circus, that's when it always stops.
Could be just the internet thing, because I know that if I go into a crowded place, even the city, in certain spots, you can't get any signal, or as far as internet, even though you have 5 bars, because everyone's, using the internet. So maybe that's what's going on, is that the internet's just being overloaded in that certain area with all the pilots.
Yeah, the bandwidth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, I mean, I mean, strobe lights are great, but I've been flying, like commercial stuff for a long time. And I can tell you right now, even in a helicopter at 100 knots, you're not looking for a paramotor. So, that's flying 20 miles an hour. I mean, you can see them, but if you had an idea that, or just a vicinity of where they were operating at, even if they're 25 feet above the ground, just so that you knew that they were there, that would be a super handy thing to have, to prevent anybody, getting hit or, getting into trouble.
Well, most pilots fly with ForeFlight, don't they?
No, because they don't pay $400 a year for it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Some pilots don't even fly with the radio.
Yeah, most of the people that almost all the fly-ins that I've been to.
No. I mean, I mean pilot. Sorry, I mean private pilots or sports.
Oh, yeah. Almost all
Yeah,
of,
four
yeah,
flight.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 And so if you're using gaggle, then you have ADSB out for that particular, it's not ADSB out, but anybody on ForeFlight can see you.
Yeah.
So it's it's pretty good that way. I mean, when aside from paramotors, I mean, if you're flying with paramotors, it's not that big of a deal because you know to be looking out for everybody. But
Sure.
So,
I'm more
Jim,
concerned about the airplanes that are half asleep on autopilot, just letting going.
Jim, are you saying that people that have gaggle, people that have the four flight can see us?
Yep. Yep. There's a setting on there. I think it's called Safe Fly. And you set it up and then you put your name in there or whatever your call sign is going to be. And it tells them that you're in the area, tells you the altitude. It tells the same thing that you receive when you're flying and it says there's an airplane at 7 o'clock at 5,000 feet. They get that too.
Yeah, we had, so an example, I love, so I, what are the Xola, why am I drawing a blank? What are the helmets? The Navolo helmets and like the Icaro and all that stuff. I used to use that stuff and, train with that stuff for years. And then I went to, when the Sky Cowboy came out with the bows, the A20 and the A30 helmets set up, I had a bunch of A20s from the R44. So I took the A20s and I threw them on those helmets. And it's crazy. I've been flying with those Bose helmets now for about a year and a half, and I will never go back to another one of those helmets. But what's cool about it is not only are you plugged into your GA radio, but I am plugged into my phone, so I can hear what's going on through gaggle or I have ForeFlight. So the last time it wasn't October, it was probably back in like September. We took off and we were flying towards the Susquehanna River, and there was a King Air that actually saw my gaggle and radioed to me on air frequency. And we were chatting and he literally called me and he's like, yeah, I'm coming up. I'll be coming up from your right-hand side. And as I turned and looked, he was probably almost eye level with me. I was like, it was almost a brown trail moment out to the river, but I climbed up above him because I didn't want to get stuck in that rotor wash. But that was so they can see the gaggle if you have that setting set up.
So they would have to
Put the
setting.
steps, Jim, to how to do that for people.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a look on here. I think it's in settings.
So you're saying that we on Gaggle have to turn on a setting for people that have ForeFlight to be able to see us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called
Okay.
Safe Sky. If you go into settings and then you go into recorder settings and you scroll down, it'll say integrations and there's a Safe Sky.
And where do you find that? Under what?
Okay, I'll start again here. So you go into Gaggle, then you go to Profile, which is down in the bottom right corner.
Gotcha.
Then you go to the gear up in the top right corner.
Okay.
And then you scroll, then you go to recorder settings.
Recorder settings. Okay.
And then you scroll down.
Uh-huh.
And you'll see Safe Sky.
Okay, Safe Sky.
You go to that, you can enable it, you can set up a call sign, and then you can also put privacy mode in there.
Okay, yeah, I already have that enabled. Is that just enabled by
No,
default?
we did that on the show last year sometime.
Okay, what is that other one I see under Safe Sky? I see GDL90. What's that?
I have never looked into that.
Okay, because that was not enabled and I haven't seen that before, but I do remember
I think that's new.
the integrations. So
it's got a radio next to it. So what are those orange things that you used to be able to buy at like REI that if you're in an emergency, you take it hiking, climbing, they just transpond. Like if something happens, if you're flying and all of a sudden you just immediately like abrupt stop or you have an impact, it sends out the, you know what I'm talking about? It sends out like the frequency to like a rescue response.
Yeah, I don't know what it's
Well,
called.
Gaggle has something similar to that, where it texts or calls
Yeah.
the number. Um, I've never tried it out, but it's
And
pretty
then
neat.
in that same screen, that setting screen, if you go to Bluetooth devices, so that's if you have that Bose, if you're flying with that Bose, or you have a Navola with the Bluetooth, you just connect it to the Bluetooth. So that way, so as when I key my 122.9, my GA frequency that I'm talking to all the people that I'm flying with, if they scan, they'll hear us chattering, and then that little gaggle, my little Paraflight LLC call sign pops up, and it shows them that and they obviously know you're an ultralight because I have a little glider, you know what I mean? It's a little paraglider that's like a little picture. If they got that, depending on the settings they have set up on the screen that they're looking at, but most people fly with an iPad. So
Mhm.
You're talking about the Spot X, the satellite communicator.
yeah,
So your communication setup, okay, it ties in with the GA radio and it ties in with your phone,
Mhm.
right? So that means you could listen to music if you
I
want
can,
to.
yeah. So I can put on Amazon. So typically cell phone, like Amazon Music, we have Spotify and Amazon. It's good to like 1,000 feet, and then you just lose the signal. So the GPS is always locked in on the phone, but 1,000 feet is when I lose cell phone signal almost every single time.
Hmm.
So it works up to 1,000 feet. And the cool part with those Bose is everything can be Bluetooth into it. So like Gaggle's Bluetooth into it. And then I've got I can have music Bluetooth into it, and then my radio connector, but I also have the ability to audio jack a connector. If you go to skycowboy.com, I think it's Sky Cowboy USA. He's a retired veteran. He's actually in Stafford, Virginia. That's where the helmet is with the Bose. He's doing the A30s now too. The A30s just have a little bit better ASS noise canceling than the A20s do. But I'm deaf, like 30% deaf, so I don't need any more noise canceling.
Okay, so it includes the Bose, because I mean Bose has the best freaking noise canceling around.
Yeah, yeah. It's go to Sky Cowboy. You want me to go get it? I can show it to you.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, pull up Sky Cowboy, whatever manufacturing or whatever it is. It'll come up. Aviation, Sky Cowboy Aviation.
I looked for that GDL 90. It looks like it's a ADS-B. It's on the screen right now, so I don't know what that is.
Oh, is that what from Gaggle?
Yeah,
That says it said 4,000 port 4,000.
right.
Man, you got to be a member of the rich and famous to get one of these. These things are expensive.
What does that thing cost?
Unless I'm seeing $2,375.
Go ahead and put that on screen if you want to.
I might be looking at the wrong thing. Okay.
You talking about the helmet?
I'm gonna pull it up on the screen.
Honestly, so what happened was this is the best way to do it if you want to get into the helmet is don't get the A30s. The A30s just came out last year. There it is. So that's my helmet there in the top left.
Okay, so that's the 2375.
Yeah. So but that's the A30. I use the A20. So you can so the A30s came out last year from Bose, and I had a bunch of the A20s from the helicopter. So I'm like, I'm not spending all that money for a new set of headphones when I have 4 pretty much brand new ones.
Yeah.
So what you can do is do the DIY kit, which is there on the right. It's $498, and then they give you the stirrups for the Bose. And the thing is when the A30s came out, everyone put their A20s on eBay. So just pick up the A20s for like $600, and then you pay $500 for the helmet. So you're in it for an Navolo cost, and you just got to do it yourself. So, and then you obviously just got to read the description of eBay to make sure that they're not selling you junk. Because if a lot of these guys, they'll throw those Bose out there in those airplanes that sit outside, like North Carolina. Like every time I go down and see Darren, there's like 5 airplanes sitting out there baking in the sun all year.
Yeah, with the headset just
just dangling. Yeah, it's like, I mean, you don't want to buy that crap. You want something that's like hanger kept, or like you get a lot of these guys that get in. I'm going to get my fixed wing, and then they get out of it, and then they throw this stuff on eBay.
So that one up there for $2,000 that has a good Bose on it that's comfortable. Is that what that is?
Yeah. So I can get mine too and show it to you if you want to see it, because you can get, so like I said, A20, the bump helmet, it's called the Wendy bump helmet. And then you can get the GoPro mount that goes right onto it. And then if you get the really thick pads, it goes over your ear completely. and the ANS noise canceling. I'll be honest, because like I said, I'm about 20% deaf in each ear from flying for all the years that I've been flying. And I was out with the guys at my field, and I was in front of them, but we were kind of taking off, like all kind of spread out like a baseball diamond. And I didn't hear the three guys behind me take off when I had that on with my music going. I turned around to look, and I was like, hey, guys, and they were gone. I was like, where'd you guys go? And they were like, oh, we took off like 2 minutes ago. So I never heard anything.
I've still got sticker shock over there. I mean, I was ready to buy that freaking thing, and I saw the price. I'm like, holy crap! Even the good deal sounds like a lot of money to me.
If I
Yeah.
Will, if I don't know if I'm going to make it to any fly-ins this year, just because we have a lot of stuff going on. But if I get down there, I have 2 of the bows. I converted 2 of my A20s into bows. I'll let you fly with it one time, and I'm telling you, it is a game changer.
Really?
Oh yeah, like you can connect your phone, your music, and everything to it, and just the community. You know, if you talk to anybody when you're up there, it is amazing.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, as far as, good communication, and it's not a volume issue, it's a clarity issue,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
people are speaking. And I can talk and communicate to the GA, group, because I kind of know what to expect that they're going to say, and I can kind of fill in the gaps. But I mean, after you ask someone to repeat something 10 times, you kind of feel like an idiot, So,
Oh
never
yeah,
mind.
in this, I don't even think, even with my loss of hearing, I think my volume is up like 50% on the Bose when I
Yeah.
turn ANS on. It's so clear. And the music, it's like listening to like gym, like I have the little Bose that goes in your ear. It's the same quality as what I listen to when I go to the gym.
That's what I'm using now, the wireless ones.
Yeah.
Are you using wireless? I'm using the
am.
wired still.
Well, I sent in the wired to get repaired or whatever, or warranty, and they sent me back the wired version, and I didn't complain. And it does a great job.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
are
Are
using,
you able to talk with the wireless ones?
I don't know. Like I said,
Yeah.
I kind of gave up.
They're
on
just
them.
they're like AirPods, like Apple AirPods. They're the Bose. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
the Bose way better than the Apple AirPods. Like I was in the car and I had the Bose in, and they were like, "What do you want? Like, are you on your car Bluetooth?" And I'm like, "No, it's just the Bose wire. Just the whatever the little earbuds are."
Yeah, but now when I'm flying, I can't talk on it.
Which
Yeah.
is why I got the wired, because the wires that comes down, that's the microphone. I just put some foam around it, and there I can talk with my Bose on.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so there is actually a site in California that if you can I have it on there. It's this little leather sleeve that goes over the boom, and it's for ultralight flying without a windscreen. So I had a little bit of air because it's so sensitive, it picks up everything. So I had a little bit of air noise picked up, and then in the mic when I would talk, if we were like, because there were like maybe 8 or 9 of us that we flew in Indiana. We were out at Richard Turner's fly-in, and we all were on Bluetooth. We just called each other, and they were like, "Man, somebody you could hear the noise, the air noise." And I had bought the little thing that go over the boom, and I just didn't install it. And I landed, installed it, and then we flew that night, and it was no. Everyone was like, "Dude, it is so clear. It's like you're sitting here at a bar talking with me with no noise." It was insane. So,
Yeah.
it's like $7, $8.
So do your A20s, do they have Bluetooth built into them?
They do, yeah.
Okay. Because they have a separate device that you can get so that it'll have Bluetooth connection, and then you can connect it to your nav radio as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
if you're gonna buy them on eBay, like I said, when the A30s came out, everyone sold the A20s. Just pick them up on eBay, but make sure they're Bluetooth. And
I've
the
got
only thing,
so many sets of radios now. It's crazy.
dude, I know. I over the years, I think for
Or I
the
mean,
school, I had like 10 Icaro helmet, those Solar X helmets from Javier at my, Aerolite. And I'm like, so people were like, hey, can I just buy this from you? So I just got a belly full because the wires would break, or they'd have an issue, or something was always wrong with them. You could hear, but you couldn't talk. So students would be like, hey, I'll give you $200. I was like, take it. So I got rid of all of it. And then once that adapter, that DYI came out from Sky Cowboy, and I converted the Bose, I'll never go back to it. And I've even let students use the Bose helmets. like I have a couple of older guys that I was a little worried about. And I was like, well, I know if they wear this, they're in trikes. I was just like, I know if they wear this, they'll be able to hear me crystal clear. So, and I just call them on the phone, and just that way we don't have to push any buttons or anything. And I just have a conversation with them. And they were like, man, that's insane. And of course they're like, yeah, I want to buy this. And I'm like, well, it's about $2,200. They're like, yeah, forget it.
Oh, you know what was what I've been looking at for my I'm gonna get eventually I'll get another helmet, but I was looking at the tactical helmets.
That's what I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically it, right? Where you
Yeah.
can
You want me
add
to go get it?
yeah,
Let me show it to you. Hold on a second. I'll go get it.
that would be really cool. You know what I'm talking about, Sean? The tactical helmets like they use.
Yeah, I think Kevin bought one. Kevin, tell us about that technical one, and don't forget to unmute. Kevin,
Yeah.
don't forget to
I thought I
unmute.
pushed the button. Sorry. Yeah, I went to. I found one on. It's called Hard Headed Veterans. They've got some pretty good bump helmets that aren't quite as expensive as your windy helmets that he was talking about. Maybe $100 less or so. I think I ended up spending about $230 maybe. So it's comfortable. I like it.
So this is it's a windy bump helmet. It's a tactical helmet, so you can buy it at any store. The only thing that I will tell you, so it's just a regular. That's the.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you bought the helmet and then you added the bows to it.
Yeah,
right?
and then what you need is these stirrups. So see these little plastic stirrups right here?
Yep.
These guys? That's what you need. So that's the part of the DIY kit. And you don't need to use bows. You can use Clarks. You can use there's a bunch of decent headsets out there. They're just, to me, I think Bose is definitely the best clarity. And it's the same connection that we use on the Icaro helmets. So, I mean, you don't even need to buy one of these helmets. You could just buy the Bose, buy the DIY stirrups for $75 from his site, and take your Icaro helmet and put the Bose right on your current helmet. Because it's the same connection that we use on the Icaro or the Navolo helmets.
Yeah. But I mean, what makes the tactical helmet so useful is can you turn it? It's got the there's the square plate. That's like a standard thing, right?
Mhm.
Kind of standard for connections and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man, that's like super handy. And some of them you can like put a little portable battery back there, for your
Yeah.
GoPro and
Yeah. And then you can, I have the visor, and then this, I have the, I mean, not that any of you guys are doing this stuff, but I mean, I'll fly with the NVGs, and that's where my NVGs go, the night vision.
uh-huh.
So you just take off the GoPro and put the NVG adapter on there.
Man, that is too cool. I mean, to me, it seems like if I had to do it all over again, I mean, the Icaro is a great helmet, but I mean, it's kind of hard to attach certain things to it when it's like all curved. You know what I mean? It's like, and you don't have the good seal with tape and stuff, but
So where's the Bluetooth on that?
It's built into the radio. There's the brain. So this is the Bose brain. So my only complaint that I will tell you is the wire is super long, and then the Bose brain that it goes into. So I have to feed it through my chest harness where my radio is, and then I kind of feed it back through, and I connect it to my torque strap, and then I connect it into the radio. That's the only complaint I have is if I do I have a foot launch a Parajet, a Mav Max XL that I do tandems on. I've got the tandem set up with it. And it's a great unit to do tandems with it. But when the passengers run, their elbows sometimes will hit the buckles, the connecting buckles, these guys, and they bump the wires loose. And on one of my flights, I actually broke the GA adapter that goes into the radio because the cable came out and it's long. And it actually got caught on my knee, and I ripped the GA connectors out of the radio. And it shorted the wire out, and of course that's like $100 to replace. So, and it was just it was just an instructional flight. I was taking the dude up, and then it costed me $150 to repair all the pins and stuff.
ouch.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was my problem too. I got one that's called a UFQ, and it makes any aviation headset into Bluetooth setup.
Ah.
And it's exactly like that, and it's really long wire. So you got to loop it around in the front here,
Yeah.
and then you got to hook it into your radio. It's a monstrosity of a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's my only complaint with them, with the Bose. And then that's the cover that I was telling you about. So it's got where you talk into it, and then it's got the noise canceling in the back. And it's just like a rubber band that goes on the bottom of it. And that eliminates all the static. You can put this on any paramotor that's got any type of noise canceling, or like the deluxe comm systems if you have an older one.
Where
You
do
can
you
put
get
that
that?
on. It's from that site. Just Google Google Bose A20 noise canceling mic boom cover. And the site is in California. Like I said, it was like $7.98 for that cover. It's like a real thick padded leather cover with the holes in it. And I put it on my Icaro helmet, and it made a world of difference because it's just a deluxe comm helmet.
Are those better than Dead Cats?
I've never used those.
Well, or the foamy thing, that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I ripped the foamy thing off and just put this on there, and it eliminates so much more of the static noise when you communicate.
Actually, that's some good information right there, and even I can afford $8.
Yeah, and having a big
Yeah.
dead cat in front of you when you're flying, other than keeping you
No.
really warm, right? Wow, I'm really warm right now, but I can't see.
Yeah, if you like traffic and you're like between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to see you. Dead cat.
Maybe a power line, right there.
Yeah.
I gotta be careful about those things.
Sean told you guys about that last week.
What, not being able to see with the mask on? Yeah,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
that was crazy. So anyways, tell us about your school, and you have different you have the different wings and different paramotors, and you said a lot of people have questions about that. So what
Yeah.
are some of the things that you have, and what are some of the questions that people have been asking you?
So gliders. So there's a couple of things with gliders that I have confirmed with MacPara, and this. So first of all, gliders pretty much across the board at this point are pretty safe. Like a lot of people are like, I get calls about reserves. What are the odds of a collapse? It doesn't really matter the manufacturer anymore. If the glider is like 2020 or newer, the gliders are pretty resistant to collapse. I mean, you got to be in some pretty gnarly air if you're, worried about collapse on a paramotor, because the paramotor is pushing you through the crappy air. So you're slicing through it. And if you're on a reflex wing, people are like, well, I want to fly, I don't want to fly. I want to fly an EN wing versus a reflex wing. And I will tell you, like the reflex wings, I have seen some of the EN wings that we've got. Like we got A and B EN wing pilots that are out here because they're free flyers. They like to go down to Virginia and fly out at like Front Royal and stuff like that. And I have actually seen those guys have more wingtip tucks than I've ever seen I've never seen a reflex wingtip tuck on some of the areas that we fly out there in Shenandoah, like out towards Front Royal. So there, the Charger 2, which is the wing that a lot of people know, especially at fly-ins. I mean, it's you got to do some really gnarly, stupid stuff. I've actually barrel rolled and flipped a Charger 2, and I threw the brakes, and the wing basically just reset itself with almost no input. I mean, it's like it's pretty resilient. So that's number one. Number two is they're not releasing a Charger 3. Everyone keeps emailing me and calling me about a Charger 3. There is no Charger 3 coming out. I talked to Peter last week privately on WhatsApp at MacPara in Czech Republic. There is no Charger 3. There is a few things coming, but it probably won't arrive until 2025. It has nothing to do with the Charger, though. They just released the Colorado 2. So the Colorado 2 came out in 2023. There was about 100 I don't know exactly, but it was 100 and some orders for the Colorado 2. And at the fly-ins that we did, we had almost 100 and I want to say 181 people flew that glider. We had a bunch of demos. We had them out all over the country, and everyone wanted me to like send them a demo. And it's like, you understand, like people don't understand that, like I pay for all this. Like I am not sending a $4,000 glider for you to just shred. And I'm telling you, I have sent some wings out as demos and I've gotten them back with a check. And they're like, just fill in whatever it costs to repair it. And I'm like, dude, like that money, I have to, that comes out of my pocket. So if when we have those events and we have all, we had almost every size available at a lot of these events. If you just weren't able to get up to an event, I'm sorry. Like I just, you're talking like, $40,000 to put, these gliders out in the country. And then there's no insurance for this stuff. And then, people are in the desert, they drag it through the dirt, the brush, cactus. I had a wing came back that had cactus briars in it, like spikes in it. So the Colorado 2 is a huge hit. They are not releasing a Charger 3. Everyone keeps telling me they're going to release a Charger 3. I'm like, that's false information. They do have some paramotor stuff in the works, but not for 2024. They did release a Verve, which is a free flight wing. It's an ENC wing. It's a little bit sportier than the Elan. And that apparently the couple of orders that have gone out, people absolutely love that wing. I have a guy right now down in Colombia, South America, flying the Elan 3, and he was like, this wing is insane. So I'm not a big free flyer. I've done free flying, but I can't really speak, a whole lot about the free flying world because I just don't fly that product. Motor maintenance. I probably get 40 or 50 emails a month about motor maintenance. So every time that you fly, so at the end of the day, and I'm not talking about you fly in the morning and then you fly at evening. I'm talking about you fly in the morning, you fly in the evening, or you fly during the day if you're at the beach, or if you're out there like some of the guys that fly all day long. At the end of the day, if you are flying for several hours, it is a 2-stroke motor. Check your head bolts. Check your spark plug. Check your manifold, the two 10mm nuts, because most of you guys are on a Moster or an Atom 80. Check the 10mm nuts on the Moster, the little copper bolts, the manifold bolts. If your motor is new and it's under 10 hours, they are going to loosen up. Stop putting head temp gauges under a spark plug, especially under a spark plug with a crush washer. If you're going to leave the crush washer and then you put the copper ring underneath of it, you're going to get air inside of that and it's going to melt your engine apart. There was a guy, I think Will posted, I'll get to it, or somebody posted to it. There was a guy that has like a quarter size hole in the middle of his piston. And if you look around the perimeter of the cylinder, it's covered in oil. That tells me that motor has been bubbling oil from the head for probably 25 hours. Because it's so burned into the aluminum head. That doesn't happen if your motor is like semi-maintained. So at the end of the day, you got to check your head bolts. You got to check your spark plug. I have these guys that are like, well, I've got like 100 hours on my BR9ES or whatever. And it's like, dude, every 15 hours, you're supposed to get rid of that spark plug and put a new one in there. And it's not because the spark plug's is failing. It's the oil that you're mixing with that fuel that gags up the diode in the spark plug. So the number is the temperature of which the spark plug burns. So everyone typically runs those BR9ES spark plugs. So the R in the spark plug number is a resistor plug. So if you have a resistor plug and you have a resistor plug cap and you can't communicate, it's because the two R's create the radio frequency static that is in the frequency of the band of the radio that does not let you communicate or hear. So you'll also hear the motor when you go to power. So if you're going to power and you hear the motor whirring inside of your helmet, that's because you have a resistor plug and a resistor cap. So they have a couple of options. One, get rid of the resistor cap and just get a regular plug cap. Two, you can get these little, they look like they're about maybe 3/4 of an inch long, and you can get them on Amazon, and they're they bite on top of the coil wire, and they will eliminate all of that static. So like Will said earlier, I can't hear, you've got to ask 10 times because the radio, clarity sucks. If you put one of those on the coil wire, it'll really sharpen the radio sound inside of the helmet.
The ferrite barrel.
Yes.
Little ferrite barrels, yeah.
Yeah, they work really well.
They do. Actually, I did that and it did help. But I want to say, if you're going to do that, tape the barrel, because when you put it on there, it snaps. And I've actually had one come off. So I put a little
Yeah, black electrical tape around it. So that's another solution. So if you're running in hot temperatures, like I get these guys like in Arizona that'll send me their motors. And I mean, I rebuilt, I don't know, 40 motors last year. There was a motor in Arizona. I mean, I don't even know how this guy got the hours out of it. I mean, he had literally almost killed the entire diameter of the piston, almost up to the piston wall. I mean, how he made it as far as he did on this motor. So I rebuilt the motor. I sent it back out to him. And I told him in the summer, run a 10, run a BR 10. And the 10, the higher the number, the cooler the plug runs. So you can run the same fuel and oil mixture, but run a higher number in the summer because it runs the plug a little cooler so that you don't add that extra heat inside of the engine. The other thing is everyone uses the modal oil that they recommend from Vitarazi. So and I'm not going to go into the conversation that I had with Vitarazi because you guys, I don't want to get into a political thing online. I'm telling you right now, 1,067 students. I think we've had in 15 years of training, I think I've had 12, maybe 15 motors have put holes in them. We use AMSOIL, Sabre. AMSOIL, Sabre. And we run it at 50-1. It's 100-1 mix. It's the oil that they run in an 8,000 horsepower nitro drag car down a track at 400 miles an hour in less than 3 seconds. If it can withstand that, your little crappy redneck lawn chair flying paramotor is going to be perfectly fine. So the modal oil tends to run on a little bit hotter, and it likes to build up a really thick carbon footprint on the top of the piston. I can show you pictures in my phone of a modal piston. All I got to do is remove the head of the motor, or I use my camera and I stick it down in the motor, and I can tell you right away, not even looking at your gas tank, what oil you're running in there. So
that's how Vitarazi, when they do their maintenance, when they do their warranty work, isn't that how they can tell what kind of they can tell for the gunk that's built up?
The response I got from Vitarazi is, well, Mr. Brian, we are in the business of parts. We're in the business of motors and parts. That's the short version of the answer that I received. So it builds up a really thick carbon footprint on the piston. Well, what happens is as you're flying, and that carbon footprint, it starts to become like a coal in fire. So think about a campfire. You got all the coals at the end of the night. Well, that carbon starts to turn into those coals, and that's all that additional heat in the top of that cylinder head. The AMSOIL has a carbon buildup, but it's very minimal at 100 to 150 hours versus the modal oil. So, and again, I'm not telling you to do it if you're going to be by the book and you're going to stay by the warranty because you got to fill out the warranty paperwork. In 20 years that I've been flying, the few warranty things that I've sent into Vitarazi, nothing has ever been approved. So it's like, at this point, I mean, what are you warrantying anyway? We don't have a lot of cracks and stuff like that in our mufflers. Every 5 hours, go through the entire engine. So you're going to check the 4 head bolts. You're going to make sure your spark plug is torqued down. You're going to check the 2 10mm manifold bolts that hold on the tune pipe. There's 3 little 10mm nuts that hold on the silencer. There's a little, I think it's an M5 Allen key that holds that little bracket around the silencer. That thing, almost on every engine that I check, is I can almost take it off by hand. And a lot of them come off in flight, end up going through your prop. So you've got to check that little Allen key. You got to remove the air box. You got to check the 4 little reed valve. I think those are M5s. And then you got to check the 2 little Allen keys inside of the little flange on the carburetor. Because those 2 little Allen keys, and you don't want to over tighten them because that's a plastic flange. So you'll crack the plastic flange. So you just have to snug them up. So all of that, when that loosens up, that's all additional air going into the fire, right? So think about your campfire. When you blow air on it, it really flames up, right? So that's all this additional air that you're putting into that combustion, and you're overheating that cylinder. and then you start to lose loss of power. You lean forward and the motor shuts off. It's because what you've done is you've taken the top off of that piston. If you have the older motors and you go to power and it starts to go into power and then it just goes out or it almost shuts off or stalls, the older motors, 90% of the repair is that little black vacuum tube that goes from the carburetor over to the crankcase. So the jug sits up here, you got the crankcase, you got where your prop pulleys are, and then there's a nipple on the crankcase, and then there's a nipple on the carburetor, and there's a little black hose. That's a vacuum hose. That hose is very important. The length is exactly the length that it was on the motor that when you received it. There's an inner dimension of compression in the bottom of that jug. And if you have that hose too long, it changes the vacuum in the circuits of the system. So then the motor won't run properly, or it'll feel like the coil is missing. So you have to find the exact length. So when you get the hose from like skysportsusa.net or whatever, and it's a little longer, lay it next to the one that you pulled off and then measure it and then cut it exactly the same length and put it back on there. I cannot tell you how many motors I've had guys rebuild the entire motor, and they did a great job. And the only thing they did was they didn't cut that hose to the right length. And you
learned that from personal experience, didn't you?
I did. I met a guy with the old Parajet with the one, I think it was a 172, 175. I'm sure somebody on there will know what it was. It was the old Parajet motor. He was from Maryland. He came down to New Bern, North Carolina, and this dude was with me for like 3 days. And I went through this entire motor. I tore the entire motor apart. We took the crankcase apart, and I mic'd the entire inner guts of the crankcase. And I did all the math to figure out what the spatial dimension of the bottom of the crank was that the vacuum needed. And I literally took the hose that he had on there and I nipped a quarter in. He had sent this motor to like 3 different people, like John Erickson, to like, I forget who else had the motor and tore it apart. So I nipped a 1/4 inch off of this vacuum hose and it went right to power. And he was like, holy cow. He couldn't believe that we fixed it. And he still flies it to this day. So it took me, I didn't know this, but that was the last thing that I could think of that could be the problem. And that's it. Like I said, it took me almost a full day to tear this apart because I had to split the crank, mic it all out, and then we put it all back together. So it took a full day to do all that. So that length is extremely important. The new carbs don't have that. So it's not something that you have to worry about. If you have the hiccup where you lean forward, you're warming the motor up and you lean forward and the motor conks out, 90% of the time, replace your fuel line. Replace the fuel line in the gas tank and then from the tank up to the carburetor.
And another thing too, I've noticed too, that happens, it could be your compression port, that little small hole when you open up in your piston, that little hole could be full of gunk.
Yeah, so that's full of carbon. So
Yep.
you got to if you take a little screwdriver bit, or I'm sorry, a little drill bit, I recommend that you do it by hand because I've had guys that they've seen the videos that I posted on YouTube and they'll go in there and they'll go in with a drill and they'll miss and they'll go right down the inside of the jug with the drill bit. And then they try to use sandpaper and polish it out. And then the rings get caught on it. It becomes a whole fiasco. So you can use a drill bit and just use your hand and work it down into that little hole. Another tool that is really good, go on to Amazon and get a dental, like a human dental pick. They're razor sharp on the edge because they're like designed to scrape plaque off of your teeth. So if you have a dental pick, get a straight one. It's got like, it literally looks like a javelin spike on the end of it. And you can use that and you can kind of bore that carbon out of that decompression port.
I've also noticed too that the ones that you can put into a drill, with the big block on the end, I forgot what those are called, instead of you just, using a chuck.
Yes.
The drill bits that have the big block on the end, they won't slide down if you drop it.
Yeah, the ones that go on like an impact gun.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, any of those, what you can even get a little hand turn drill too, that you just turn it like a regular, like I don't know, like you're winding a toy up or something. You can turn it and you put the drill in the end of it. You can use that too. You can get them at like Lowe's, Home Depot. You can find them on Amazon, but you got to be really careful not to scratch the jug. So 5 hours, you're going to do your head bolts. Head bolts are number one, spark plug. You're going to check your reed valves, the 4 little reed valve screws. You're going to check the 2 screws that are inside of the little flange on the top, the plastic flange in the carburetor. You're going to check your 3 silencer bolts, your 2 manifold bolts, and then the M5 or M6 or whatever it is that holds the bracket, that holds the silencer in place and keeps it from rattling. So that is your 5-hour maintenance every time, and you need to log it. So if you fly with Gaggle, it logs it for you. If you fly with PPG Flyer, it logs it for you. But if you stick to that and you keep your RPMs, so when you run the motor, you have your high jet and your low jet. You don't need to mess with the needle settings. The only thing that you typically need to mess with is the idle setting. So when you go into the cooler air, you get more dense. It's thinner air. It's more condensed air. You don't have that real hot expanded air like we do in the summer. So a lot of times the motors, when you fire them up, you warm them up, the prop engages and it's just spinning at idle. You can just back down the idle. Everyone wants to change the low jet and they want to either lean it or they make it too rich. And then they get that mid-range chirp where you're flying along and everything kind of jumps on you. So 90% of the time, it's just that idle screw. So what I do, and people see me at fly-ins, and I think Will was at one of the fly-ins when he was like, I can't believe you're sticking your hand in there. I leave the motor running. I'm trusting you 100%. I think it was at Bad Apples. You were standing there with me and you're like, I cannot believe you're doing this live.
Purdon's.
Purdon's.
Yeah, I think it was Purdon's.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get up on a helicopter while the blades are running to look inside the calibrations to make sure that all the trueness is happening properly on the head. Like I'm that idiot. So I stick my hand behind, like I have you hold, make sure that you're not going to touch the throttle. And I grab the prop and I go in there and I manually adjust it. And we can usually dial it in to where it's like butter. Sorry, I have a light. So you can get it dialed in to where it's like perfectly smooth all the way through the power band from idle all the way up. So what I do is I want to turn that idle screw in to the props engaging after the motor is above 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I back it down until the motor is running at a high idle, but it's not engaging the prop. At that point, stop. That's where you want it. So if you bring that idle down real low, and I hear a lot of fly-ins where the motor's like barely running and it's pumping out a ton of smoke, A, you're just loading up that piston with carbon because you got so much, you have so, you don't have it running high enough. But B, the motor is vibrating like crazy. And that is where all those stress fractures come in those exhaust pipes that you guys complained about, that my exhaust broke after 10 hours or 20 hours. So, and then the carbon buildup that you're talking about in the port, the jug port, when you're running real low like that, you're not getting that real clean burn. That's when that jug carbon compression port gets really built up, and you got to go in there after like 40 or 50 hours and clean it out. So if it's running at a high RPM, the prop's not engaging, that's where you want it, which is, to me, it's like 2350, 2400 is about where the RPM is on the Moster 185. Atom 80s are a little different. They're a little higher because it's a smaller engine.
Yeah, usually when I replace my spark plug, I'll pull the head anyway, because those little gaskets on the head, I can take them on and off a couple times during the year, and I don't have to worry about replacing them. So I take them off and I clean out the port, and I even clean off the piston head, replace my spark plug every 15 hours. I'm with you. I don't have any problems with burnt pistons or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
I think we had some questions also in the super chat. Will?
You had Paul Marzano wanted to know if you wanted to run a CHT and you didn't put the sensor in the
yes. So this is what you're going to do. And guys, I don't know what happened with the manufacturer, because I used to be able to get these things for like $35, and then now they're like $50, $60, $75. I got that new Mad Max and I ordered the new CHT and it was like $82, and I was like, holy crap. So I don't know what the deal is with them, but when you order the head temp, the TTO or Trail Tech or whatever you're getting, don't get the 14 mil or whatever for the spark plug. What you're going to do is get the little copper piece that looks like this that goes around where it normally would go in a spark plug. You want to get a 10 millimeter, and then as you're looking at the head on the Moster, so what you're going to do is you don't ever want to put a head temp gauge on the exhaust side, because the exhaust side is like 1,000 degrees when that combustion is coming out right at the manifold. And you get this ridiculously high number and you're like, oh my God, I'm burning my piston. You're not burning anything up. You just have the exhaust temp, the CHC on the wrong side. What you want to do is as you're looking at the motor, so the propeller's right at your chest, and then the pilot's in front of you, you're going to put it on the head bolt that's closest to the pilot on the carburetor side. So you're going to take that little 10 millimeter off, and they are one-time use nuts, by the way. That is in the manual. Those little copper nuts, everyone uses them multiple times, but they are one-time use locking nuts on the head. So you remove that one nut, and you're going to put that little 10 millimeter CHT probe on there, and you're going to torque it right back down to wherever your spec is. Now, when you fly, within the first 5 to 10 hours, that nut is always going to loosen up until that settles back in. So you got to retorque those head bolts every time that you fly, at least for the first 10 to 15 hours, before you notice that you don't have to do it anymore, because it will have expanded and contracted enough that you don't have to do it anymore because it'll lock in. Then you can go to your 5-hour maintenance routine. So that's the head bolt that you put the CHT on, and it's a 10 millimeter. And then you just run the wire down your throttle, or you put it wherever you want to put it. The problem is, what's that?
How close would the reading be? I mean, compared to, it seems like if it's on the outside, it would be,
less.
Yeah.
So all you have to do, so what we did was we ran it, and then we used an infrared gun to test it. I used an infrared gun. It's a snap one that we used to run on test turbine gases. And it was within 20 degrees at the highest temperature. So if it's saying that it's at like 298, add 20 degrees to it just to play it safe. So you're like, let's say you're running if it's at 300, you're running 330. So my motors, even doing tandems, and I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, and I've taken up 260-pound foot launch guys, my motor never gets over 365 degrees. Not even on takeoff. Everyone's like, oh, I get it to like 400 on takeoff. Well, I don't know what you got going on there, but that's not normal. So, because I've taken up some bubbas and I have never had my motor go over maybe maybe one time my max one was like 362, 365, but that's it.
Do you use the shrouds?
I do use a shroud, and the shroud that I recommend, do not use the Vittorazzi shrouds. Use the Marty Hathaway shrouds. Marty is going to kill me because he does this for fun because he's retired. But friend him on Facebook. Tell him that Brian Goff sent you his way. I don't care. You can inundate him. He charges like $100 and something for these shrouds. His shrouds run 20 to 50 degrees cooler than the Vittorazzi shrouds. And I don't know. It's just the way he did the scoop. The way he did the scoop. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I use one of his. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So that is the shroud that I recommend. And again, he's retired. He does this for fun. So if I know one summer I sent him like a ton of people, and he was like, dude, I'm retired. And I was like,
not anymore.
Yeah, right. So, but his stuff works amazing. It works way better than the Vittorazzi stuff. We have every motor. We have 7 motors out on the hangar, and every one of them, I think, has one of his shrouds on it. So, and then you definitely need a tack and an hour gauge if you're going to, and again, Amazon. Everyone thinks that this stuff comes with like the paramotor. Like these are all like, it's aviation. You're buying everything. So you're not getting anything as a full package. Even the full packages that you get sold, you're still buying pieces and parts.
And then add all the wants, to the list, right. Things that would be cool. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, you're not, I don't think you're getting into this. If you're a Parajet and you're on a Mac Para with training, helmet, radio, and you're not buying real fancy like helmet, radio, I would say you're in it between now with the inflation about 16.2 and then to 17.2, and then trikes are 17 to 20 grand, depending on how crazy you go, if you're going new.
Yeah.
So, and I tell people, do not, unless you know the school or the instructor or the person that glider came from, I strongly advise against you getting a secondhand glider, because I have never had a student that brought me a secondhand glider that we did not discover major repair work that was not done properly. So, matter of fact, the last one that we had, I test flew it, and when I landed, one of the cells had completely unstitched.
Ooh,
Wow.
Yeah.
that sounds like a home repair job there.
Yeah. It was with like their Singer sewing machine. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we've discovered that on eBay, mostly on eBay, what people are doing is they are buying up junk wings and junk paramotors. They are welding them crappily, if that's a word. They paint them. They make them look much newer than they are, including, like you just said, they stitch the wings and stuff like that, and they sell them on eBay, and obviously they don't fly. So even if you talk to them, you know, they'll probably say, "Oh, I'm selling it for my friend or whatever."
Yeah.
Well, those are the ones that I've seen over at the school, where same thing, stitches come undone, the welds break on the paramotor. Yeah, eBay. I don't think I'd recommend eBay as far as buying anything. Now, a lot of times the Facebook places, you know, not marketplace, but our groups, they seem to be pretty good. I've heard a couple people that got some crap stuff. But you would recommend going to schools, getting demos out of boxes from schools and stuff like that.
Yeah. Either a demo, and I mean, they demo wings, but even demo wings are, I mean, my rule of thumb is, I mean, my dad he's a retired rear admiral in the Navy, right? So he was a fighter pilot. So I've been flying since I was like 6 years old. If you demo anything in aviation and you don't own it, you're probably not going to take care of it as if you have $4 or $5, $3,000 tied up in it. So if you buy a demo wing, you're probably going to get a lot of holes or little tears because it's drug across the ground. And I can tell you, every wing that I had, those Colorados that we had out this summer, yeah, man, I took it out there and I kited it for like 2 hours. And I mean, this one wing that I got back must have been kited through like a briar field, like a cornfield that wasn't completely I mean, I was like, dude, I could make Swiss cheese out of this. I mean, it was like, I actually took the wing and sent it back to MacPara, and their first email when they got it back was like, what happened to this? Because it looked like somebody hung it upside down and took AR-22 long rifle and just shot 22 rounds through it.
What the heck?
So yeah, so it's like school. So what I'm talking about is, I get a lot of people, usually older folks, that'll come out. We'll do like an introduction flight just to see, so they can see what it's all about. They buy all this equipment, and then they come out. They spend a month or so. They're out there on the weekends because they have full-time jobs or kids or whatever. They get one flight in, and they're like, you know what? This just isn't, I just don't have the time. And, they realize that how much is involved, and they're like, I can't do this. I don't have the time to commit to it. So I'm like, leave your gear in the hangar, and then, I'll post it up for you. And that's the stuff that I'm talking about. That's what I would recommend. If you're going to go secondhand, get something like that, because it was under my eye the entire time. I know nothing happened to it. It's got all the original parts that came out of the box. And it's like, I have no issues with selling something that I know every minute, as far as what's happened to that glider. And then there was a guy, it was not a MacPara wing, but he calls me up and he's like, man, can I put MacPara risers on this? I'm not going to get into the brand. And I was like, no. I was like, what happened? And the trim buckle completely disintegrated on his like first flight, $4,000 wing out of the box. And I was like, no, dude, like, you got to order the OEM part for that. Like, that's set specifically for that line length. Like, you can't just marry, random parts together. And he was like, yeah, but I don't trust it. And I was like, that's not my problem. So he wanted to order a MacPara riser set to put on another brand wing because the trim buckle disintegrated on like his first or second flight or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got stories. I mean, I'm not going to get into it with the political because I don't want to start a Facebook war. But
Oh yeah. No names, obviously,
yeah,
but understanding what people are going through is the way to go. So yeah, not mentioning names or gliders and stuff. What are some of the things that have happened over the time that you've been doing this where like you said, student come in and the buckle disintegrated? I mean, what other stories do you have, and what are and how do you fix something like that, or how do you make sure that something like that doesn't happen?
so well, I can't speak for the manufacturer, so it's like, so I will tell you that Mac Paragliders, and this is something that I mentioned on Will's show back, it was like a year ago, Will, almost, like 9 months ago. All the Mac Para stuff is hand stitched. It is test flown before I receive it. And if you have a trike or a motor, I tell them, hey, this guy's on a Maverick Sport, or this guy's on a Maverick XL or whatever. And they usually set your brake lines up. There's very few. Like I had one gentleman in Florida that he's on a trike and he ordered a Colorado too, and the lines were all out of whack. And I don't know if I don't know if it was something that they did or he did, or they just didn't do it at the factory. That's the only glider that I've had in the 3 years that I took over the Mac Para that was off. And he took it to Eric Dufour, and Eric Dufour fixed it right away. It was super easy, but he was a trike guy. But there's so many trike variables, right? Do you have high hang point? Are you low hang point? Are you on an ABM? Are you on a fixed seat? So like when you tell them this information, I don't know or exactly what you're flying unless you send me a picture. So that's one thing about the manufacturers. These other manufacturers don't do that. They're not hand stitched. They're just cranked out. So I've seen the triangular malleons, that's what they're called, malleons, literally just open up. Like that's where your lines are attached to. Like they've ordered malleons from me. I've had 2 or 3 rescue, like Civ people order the rescue reserve. So people will just use like these little malleons that they got with the reserve that they get from the factory. And they're super tiny. They're really thin metal. So a rescue malleon, a reserve malleon for a reserve that fits underneath your harness where the Velcro straps are, they're pretty beefy. Because if you think about it, if you're free falling and you throw that reserve, I mean, that's going to pop and open and it's going to stop you like a parachute, right? So it's pretty abrupt. If they're like paper thin, anyway, this guy sent me one that broke, but thank God, when he was a skydiver and he used that elephant ear thing, which is like a little rock climbing nylon wire that like looped into itself on top of the malleon that he had on his paramotor. So the malleon literally disintegrated and the Y bridle came off the malleon, but it was still attached to that elephant loop. And that's the only reason that the guy was he walked away from it. So, wow. And it was a reserve that was part of the package deal. Well, we're going to throw you in a reserve. So
you'd be like, oh, yay. Oh,
yeah. Right. It's like, that was a $500. Yeah. So anyway, those are like the things that I've seen this year. A handful of malleons. There's a couple of gliders that have like the plastic. There's like these snaps that go into them. Have you ever seen them?
Mm-mm.
Like inside the malleons or quick links?
Yeah. So you got the malleon, right? And then there's like a plastic piece that holds it all together, and the plastic pieces have failed.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I do know what you're talking about. It's like a clear plastic piece.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So again, it's like, I mean, we're getting to the point where people are jumping from like beginner, like, just flying flight and level. And what people don't understand is a lot of these gliders that they're doing these hard aggressive maneuvers on are not all designed for that type of flying.
Exactly.
You can buy a glider that's designed for that, but that's not a lot of what's going on, because people are buying things, they're getting really comfortable, they start to get ballsy, and they're not on a glider that's like an aircraft world. We stress the aircraft to handle. So an F-18 has a stress level to hold up to a certain Mach, right? The Apache helicopter, the Red Bull with the titanium blades that goes inverted, the helicopter, those aircraft are stressed to handle those forces. Well, those gliders that you guys are on are typically not handled. They're not designed to handle those forces. So you have to purchase the glider to match what kind of flying style that you're doing. You can't.
And also your swing arms too. I've seen some people do some crazy stuff and they bent
Yeah.
their swing arms or their Jesus bolts break. So,
Yeah.
one of the big things too is that my first year of flying, I flew 350 hours on my first Roadster, and I went through two different SIV clinics, and my lines were so stretched within that first year that I had to get brand new lines put in. So that's another thing too. The line stretch. This was the Kevlar, but not the Dyneema.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend? I mean, if you are going to do something that's going to put a lot more G's on, what are some uh, uh, I guess paramotors and wings that can handle those type of stresses?
So backing up to your line question or your line comment. So this is from Mac Para. This is from Peter, the guy that designs all the wings at Mac Para. This is a universal statement. This isn't, it is not specific to Mac Para. So I asked Peter, I'm like, what is, because people were complaining to me about like, wow, a full line set is really expensive. And I'm like, well, what are you comparing that to? Because if I'm teaching you to fly an R44 at $500 an hour and you're going to get 20 hours out of that, and then after you get signed off, you get your solo, you're renting that for $440 an hour, right? And then, how many hours you're going to fly. Let's say you fly 10 hours. So you got $4,000 wrapped up in that. A, you don't own the helicopter. B, you're filling it up with low lead 100 for $300 or $400 every time. So I'm like, you're flying this glider for 100 to 150 hours and you're spending $500 or $600 to replace all the lines. So how are you complaining that that's expensive? Because you can't do that in a helicopter or a Cessna and spend $500 or $600. We had a Piper Matrix. Our last annual before we sold it was $25,000. That's like you going and getting your car, done, your car inspected and your exhaust emissions at your local mechanic. That's what the annuals are like on an airplane, $25,000. So the line comment or the line statement is paramotor wings. The lines on a paramotor glider are only good for 150 hours. A free flight wing is good for 200 hours. So regardless of the type of flying that you're doing, 150 hours, you should replace the full line set and send it in and get it inspected. If you're free flying, it's 200 hours. If you're doing really aggressive clinics like the SIV clinics and stuff like that, at the end of the season, he said, send it in and get it inspected and then let them determine at how stretched and how, worn out that stuff is. But you said, how many hours did you have in that year?
I did at least 300. Yeah, at least 350, not including kiting. And yeah,
So you were double. Yeah.
I was putting massive amount of, and of course, after going through the SIV clinics, I would do flat down spirals on a paramotor. I would do, wing overs and stuff. But after that first year, and I realized that, just, flying, if you just take off and fly, buzz around and come back, those lines will last you a lot longer than doing any type of acro. You do any type of acro, and you're going to be replacing your lines, which of course is not expensive. To replace all the lines, sending it in for inspection was about $800.
Yeah.
So no big deal, really cheap if you're going to go out and do something, that your wing is going to take care of you. And that's the whole idea when we're flying PPG, is to make sure that our equipment is safe. I replace my carabiners every year, regardless if I need it or not. I replace my my fuel line, whether I need it or not. Obviously I think I need it, but even if I don't, all the different shackles, I replace all the shackles too, get brand new shackles. So I replace a lot of stuff every year, whether I feel like I need it or not, just because those carabiners can eventually stress out on you. And I don't want to be the guy that, comes down on a streamer because, I decided, I'm not going to spend $50 this year on carabiners.
Sure. Yeah. And another thing, if you're using the aluminum carabiners, the 18 kilonewton carabiners that come on like all the Parajet Mavericks, and they come on almost all the paramotors that are out there, they're like the light silver.
Right.
Mac Para has a pair of stainless carabiners, and I think they're 27 kilonewtons. So at one of the airports that we went to. So Phoenixville, I do a lot of DoD work up in Phoenixville on helicopter style. We took 2 tractor trailer trucks and we took one of the 18, and I don't even think the tractor trailer trucks tensioned the strap fully, and the aluminum carabiner just literally exploded. And I wanted to post this on YouTube, but when I sent it, when I talked to a couple of people, they're like, dude, don't do that, because you're just going to open up a can of worms. Now, you are never obviously going to pull yourself apart with 2 tractor trailer trucks. The stainless steel carabiners, they actually held up and they bent, but the strap failed on the stitching. The beaners did not. With 2 semi trucks. Now, I don't know how much more they would have taken, because they stretch themselves long. You know, the carabiners are square. They stretch themselves out to like a point, but you couldn't open the gates anymore, but they never actually broke. The strap broke.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Those carabiners are usually 18 kilonewtons, but straps themselves, the webbing, usually 23 kilonewtons. So your carabiners are always going to fail before any of your webbing, and everybody's afraid about the webbing and stuff like that. The webbing is strong.
Yeah.
You know, very strong. I see Paramount taking off her glasses, so I know what that means. It's 8:30 right now. We've been talking for an hour and a half, and somebody wants to do a thumbnail. Plus, we might have some people that need to, leave, because we do talk a little bit about paramotors. All right, ready to do a thumbnail, guys? Will, you ready to do a thumbnail? And Will's on mute, so.
I am not on mute. Quit spreading them rumors.
All right.
All right, you ready?
Ready, Freddie.
Okay. 1. I'm getting there.
All
2,
right. See if I can do
3. All right, we got it.
Got the heart thing and everything.
I think I might have gotten that. We'll see.
Come on, heart. Boom, boom.
You know what I learned the other day?
What's that?
I wonder if it's the same here. Did it on a black background. What's that other StreamYard? I can get the heart to work on StreamYard. I can't get it to work on Zoom.
Don't work for me. Still.
Just Sean. Yeah, Sean got his heart on there.
Hey, now, this is a family show. All right, so we're at 8:30. You want to go for another half an hour, or how's everybody doing on here?
Yeah, I need to take off.
Take off. I love it.
No, it's pitch black out there. I need some night vision. No. Thank you very much, Brian, for coming on the show. It was awesome again to have you. I love hearing about the wings and the mechanics and stuff like that. And also, I'm going to have to, I couldn't find that little cover. I found a whole bunch of other little covers for the mic, but not that little leather one. So I'll have to.
I'll add the link to the group chat.
Okay,
Sounds
excellent.
good.
I'll have
Thank
to
you very
find it.
much.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing. You guys have a great evening.
sure. You too.
Thanks, Jen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Will, how you doing? Do you need to go? Or are you good for a little while?
Yeah, I'll hang out for a little while longer. I mean, I'm enjoying myself, but there was one thing that where'd Scuba go?
Oh yeah.
Scuba, what happened to you, man? Okay, so there was one
He doesn't like us anymore.
What if we thought while we're leaving?
Like if Jim's not here, heck, I'm gonna leave. So Joe Adele says he wants to, what decarbon solution do you prefer? Was his question.
As far as like cleaning the motor.
Yeah, I'm assuming,
Like the head, I would assume.
So
like a carbon on the head?
yeah, so I have so I don't want to give you, I'll tell you what I do, but I don't want people to like go out to like Harbor Freight and buy this stuff, because I have a specialty wire tool that's got little, like it's designed for an aluminum piston to remove carbon, and it's like this little metal brush that you can put on like a drill. But I get them from United Technologies, which is like the Sikorsky Like so it's like they're like $200-300 because we use them to clean things on helicopters. So I had somebody like went and got like just a paddle wire brush from like Walmart, and they're like, yeah, man, they took like the A and like the arrow off the piston. I'm like, dude, like don't take the metal off the piston. So if you
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so this tool that I have is like I can do it, and it's very gentle to the aluminum. It just cleans it back down to like basically polishes it to new.
Is it like a fiber or something? Like a
It is. It's like metal. Yeah, it's like it's metal. It looks like a wire metal brush. So like you can either get one that's like a paddle that that's got the bristles on the outside and it's got the little stem that you can plug into a drill, or you can get the one that looks like a little like sweep cleaner that rotates. It looks like like a side like the brush on the side of a street sweeper. I would recommend the side of the street sweeper looking one, because the paddle one, you can really push down on the drill and dig into the metal. The street sweeper one is kind of pancake out a little bit, and it's going to be a little less aggressive on the aluminum. But I spray it with carb cleaner. And then what I do is I just lightly use that tool, and it sits in a special vise. It's like a tubular vise. So it's the exact diameter of that piston, and my device expands and contracts so that I have exactly, so that when the drill goes down into it with that little tool on the end of it, it's just taking off the surface. Because I've seen guys like round the edge of the piston, like when they've done it, if you're too aggressive with it. So that's what if you want to do it and you want to do it quickly, if you want to do it with sandpaper and carb cleaner, you're going to be out there like with 200 grit. I've had guys that have worked on it for like 2 days, to get it back to new. The wire brush will take you 15 minutes, but you just got to be really careful at how aggressive the pressure that you're putting down on the piston.
Yeah, so I use the carb cleaner also, and I don't use these right here that have metal on it. There's some that have it's not metal, and I can't find it right now, but it's the non-metal toothbrush looking scrubber thing that has like a carbon fiber type of thing where that it doesn't scratch it.
Mm-hmm.
But with the carb cleaner stuff and scrubbing it up, like I said, I usually do it when I change out the spark plug. So we're only talking about 10-15 hours anyway, so there's not a lot of stuff there. So I like to keep things clean rather than it being built up and then trying to break it all off at about 50 hours.
Yeah, you can use that. I mean, it's okay if I put scratches on the piston sometimes. It doesn't affect anything. I had a Moster engine. It was a Moster Classic with 865 hours on it before.
Classics are awesome. I did love the Classic.
And I used to clean it with not with the tool that I have now. I ordered this set of tools because they were like all the different sizes. They're like a couple of $1,000s for what I use them for. But I ordered the smaller ones specifically for the paramotor, and it takes me like 3 minutes to just zip through it. Because it also has a honing tool that'll put the thatching back in your jug. So I just run the drill down through your jug, and it'll rethatch your jug back to factory. But yeah, just a little bit of scratching on it isn't going to hurt anything. You just don't want to like gouge it. Like you don't want to like a cat scratch. You don't want to do anything like that on the metal. But if you just have like little light, brush marks on it, it ain't going to hurt anything. It's not going to affect anything. And whatever you do, don't wear the point. Everyone focuses on the point because that's where most of the carbon buildup is, because that's where the heat is, where the spark plug combusts at. So don't take the point off the piston. Because that's the other thing. And then they have problems with like it really doesn't run smooth, and it runs like crap, and then it's because that point's there. So you've changed the top of the compression by removing that point. The other thing that we didn't talk about is the gapping of the plugs. So 0.026 is what you should be gapping all of those plugs, unless it's an iridium plug. You do not gap an iridium plug. I was at Purdon's, and somebody came up to me with an iridium plug, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen one like this before. And they're like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I gap. I'm like, you don't gap iridium plugs ever. So iridium plug comes out of the box and goes right into the paramotor. And then you can go to AutoZone or any of those, advanced auto parts, O'Reilly's, and then you just tell them I want BR90S or BR10ES or whatever in an iridium plug, and they'll give it to you. So they're about 16, 17, 18 bucks, I think, versus like $2 to $3 $3-4, whatever they are now.
Were those two spark plugs again?
So you have the BR9ES and the gapping is 0.026, and then the BR10ES, and again 0.206 or 0.026, and then you have the Iridium version, which has a point. Do not gap Iridium plugs; just put them in.
You know what? And I know you're right, but I have never gapped my plugs. I've got the gapper, I got the little the measure or whatever, but I've just never gapped the plug. So maybe I've just gotten lucky.
Nobody does. There was, I can't think of his name, and I'm drawing a blank because I spent like at Purdon's, we flew with him a week before we got to Purdon's, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. He has like the old Leon Wacker setup on like a trike. And dude, his paramotor was a nightmare. So I went through and just overhauled it for him real quick. And he took off and he was like, I've never had this much power ever in my life. And I'm like, he was like, this is incredible. He's like, this is what it's supposed to be like. He thought the wing was too small for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, no, your motor is just so out of tune because
was it a Monster 185?
Yeah, it was a Monster 185, but it was like the Lowe's hardware special, the Home Depot special.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's just, I know they're paramotors, they're two-stroke motors, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is an aviation engine. It is spinning a propeller, even though it's not under a load. So like, you really should replace that stuff with OEM parts. Like you really, people go to Home Depot and Lowe's and replace a lot of these nuts and bolts. And it's like, I get the motor and I'm like, where did you get this from? Ace True Value? I'm like, yeah.
Especially the head bolts. I've seen some that are not heat resistant and basically crumble as you're trying to pull them off after not too long because they're so hot.
The Nylock is my favorite. When I get a guy that has Nylock with no Nylock in it anymore.
I know.
So Nylock in aviation is, just so you know, and this is the standard rule with Nylock bolts, period. It's a one-time use bolt. You put it on and you snug it, and when you remove a Nylock bolt, you throw it out. You don't ever use them. So
but it looks good. It still looks good.
It still fits. It's still 10 millimeters. It's like so, but yeah,
Nylock. I can screw it all the way down and all the way off with my fingertips, but know.
So I forget what the last one somebody used. I'm like, where did you get these at? And he's like, oh my gosh, they fit perfect. They were off of my daughter's. They were the little solid end caps that go on training wheels, like the nuts.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he used for his. That's what he had on his head bolts.
The caps?
No, he had the nuts with like the dome on it, like on training wheels because the kids like clothes to get caught on them. That's what he used. He was like, yeah, but they fit perfect. And they torque exactly. I'm like, well, yeah, you're just torquing it to the top of the dome. You're not actually torquing it to the head. It's like,
God bless him, man.
Gosh.
He had like 100 hours on it. It worked. It was on an old Simonini.
This goes to show.
Yeah.
But I think what keeps a lot of people from doing, and I'm speaking from experience, from doing maintenance is fear of not doing it right.
Yeah.
So, and this kind of thought came to me. I mean, if you get into this sport, when I was first told when I got into this sport, you will become a two-stroke motor, mechanic. It's just, you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to do it all over again, which I actually am considering doing it now, is like maybe taking one of those tech school two-stroke motor courses. I don't even know if they have them.
They do. If you go to any community college, most of community colleges has like they'll do like welding or they'll do like a small engine repair. And it's like they have, it's like 6 weeks. It's like $350 or something like that. It's like 2 hours, on a Friday. You'll learn a lot. But there's also a lot of things in those classes that are like lawnmower based or like weed whacker based so when you dig into the paramotor, there's a lot of things that you're going to see that aren't on those. Like somebody, so they're definitely beneficial, but you still you need to look at the manual. That's the one thing that, it was Purdon's. Purdon's was like a crazy year this year. I don't think I ever sat down and like enjoyed a conversation. I was just working the whole time that I was there fixing.
You were the maintenance man.
Yeah, I'm always, but there was what was I going to say about the the motor maintenance. Oh, the guy goes, I forget what he brought me. I want to say it was a Polini, something, a Polini 190 light or something like that. And I was like, hold on, let me pull the manual up. And he's like, what do you need that for?
Manual.
I'm like, because I want to know what the specs are on the motor. So I went back through with my torque wrench, and I'm like, well, he had torqued the head so tight that he literally had no more like head gasket.
Oh man.
So, yeah, I don't like. I pulled the head off, and I was like, dude, yeah, this you're done. Like, there's nothing you could do with this. And he's like, well, can't we like use a Moster one on there? I'm like, no, like it's a diameter is different. He's like, well, you could stretch it, and I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. He was like, he was bartering with me to like just fix it like MacGyver. I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that. It's just like, so, but yeah, I'm telling you, like that's the maintenance stuff kills me at these every time. I don't think I ever go to a fly-in and actually sit and chat. I'm always, I mean, you saw me at Apples, and I think Bad Apples, this first year that I was down there, I split the cranks, replaced the ball bearings, like the crank bearings.
Hey, you were on the other side of the lake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I split
yeah.
7 motors in that week.
Dang, man. You're just gonna have to go in disguise if you want to enjoy flying, you know.
So I love doing it, and I like teaching people to do it. It's just it's just insane. It's like I love the guys that'll come to you and they're like, oh yeah, there's like 400 hours on this, and they're like, it makes this really bad sound. Like, you replace the crank bearings? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, that answer is no. It's like,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, whatever. I mean, I'll tell you what, you can make a living doing maintenance and paramotoring if you wanted to do it.
I believe that. I really believe
Yeah.
that. I mean, not only even the guys that want that know how to do it, their time is better well spent maybe with their family, or they've got a closing, or their
Sure.
business, or
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean that certainly provides a value.
That's where I'm at. I mean, why do I want to turn wrenches on a paramotor for $65 an hour when I can go over here to a DOD and make $1,000 an hour?
Yeah, that's right.
It's
right.
like,
I
I'm like, I'm all set. And then I got to deal with my wife going, why do we have 12 paramotors in our garage?
There you
There
go.
is a lot. There's a element of enjoyment though doing mechanical work. I mean,
Yeah.
bring something that didn't work and now it works because of your efforts. I mean, so I've always enjoyed mechanical type stuff, but it's also scared me too.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. But I mean, I know I would enjoy it if I got into it.
I think it would be cool just to do like a class, like just to have somebody video a full split, like a full breakdown of everything, like professionally video it, have like 7 or 8 camera angles. Like the Scout guys did a good job. But the problem is like their terminology, like they use the inner race and the outer race. And that's where they'll call me and they're like, what's the inner race or the outer race? I'm like, the inner part of the bearing and the outer part of the bearing. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, but the language barrier is what tricks people up on certain things. But the Scout videos are real. I really like them, and that's usually where I defer people to, unless they're trying to explain something to me and they're like talking Chinese, and I'm like, all right, let's video chat and like let me see what you're talking about. But it would be really cool to like do a full, literally from A to B, from a full breakdown, lay it all out, clean it, and then put it all back together, and then do segments. This is the breakdown, this is the cleaning, and then this is the assembly. And it takes, if I do it by myself and I'm not talking and instructing how to do it, I can do a full engine in about 4.5 hours.
Wow.
So, but if I'm explaining and showing people, and then people have a million questions, it becomes a 2-day project.
Yeah. Yeah, I could understand that. Well, so a video though, a video course even would be cool, and probably a lot of people would buy, because then they can kind of take their time and kind of go through it. If they didn't understand it, rewind it a little. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I could see it would be difficult if people are over your shoulder asking you 10 questions when you're trying.
Yeah, and that's always what it is. We do like the one that we did last summer that I told you about. We had like 117 people showed up. We did it in the hangar. We didn't have parking. Like we had nowhere for people to park, because the owner of the airfield was like, dude, I don't want them parking on the runway, like, or on the grass.
Sure.
So, I mean, we had people like up the road, down the road. We had the neighbors coming to see like what was going on. And
Was
I mean,
this was this up there or was this in North Carolina?
no, it was up here in PA. I did it at the hangar out here. I have a huge hangar out here in PA. And it was like I think I think every single person had a GoPro. I mean, they're all standing there like, oh, can I get closer to you? And can I see? And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard to do it when everyone's trying to see and they're all crowded around. And I mean, it was so many people, you couldn't even see, only 20 people could get close enough to see what I was doing.
Yeah, that would be
So,
difficult.
but yeah, I mean, it would definitely be beneficial. And I know they do the carb kit rebuild training and all that stuff at, a lot of these events and stuff like that. And they show you how to do it. But that's such a small component of all the other stuff in that motor. And then the fuel injection that they're coming out with, that is not you got to know what you're doing with fuel injection. And if you have a hiccup or you get, garbage in there that you got to get cleaned out, when it's electronic, when you start taking all that stuff apart, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get yourself into a heap of crap that you're going to end up calling, you got to go somewhere to get it fixed. And I know I've chatted a couple of times and they're like, are you interested in working on, like, do not put my crap out there. I am not interested in touching fuel injection. So I think it's a really cool concept and I know it works. It works well because it's been, they've been testing it for years, but that is going to be, wait until I give it 2 years after they release that motor in the States and that you can order them now. 2 years, you're going to see them all on eBay for half the price.
What do you think about electric?
Electric is, I think electric motors, the concept is cool, but the battery life and that weight of the batteries are just not there. We have an electric motor in Northern Virginia, and that thing, the battery on the thing, I think is like 65 or 70 pounds. And then if you go into like the turbo mode on the computer, you only get like 15 minutes on.
Really?
Yeah. So like if you leave it on like the snail mode or whatever, there's like a couple of modes on it. You can fly for about 30 minutes before you come in. And the funny part is every time the guy brings it out, we go fly. And then he's like, hey guys, I'm going to fly back and get my moster. And I'm like, why didn't you just take off with your moster?
Well, I flew the SP-140 and they had the hour battery pack on it. And I put it on ludicrous mode, the sport mode.
Yeah.
And I flew for almost a good hour that day.
Really?
Yeah.
What size wing are you on though?
I believe I probably had a 28 meter on that, and we're
Gotcha.
pretty close to sea level. So I like to float, I like to get really good gas mileage on my paramotors because I normally fly an Atom 80.
Okay.
Even though I am 240, I love to fly, the small motors just because just that one little crack, whoop, there you go. It's going, it's really light and they're just fun to fly.
Yeah. That's good. What motor was it that you were on?
The SP-140, that's the electric one from Open PPG.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's in Virginia. Wow, you got an hour out of that, huh?
Pretty close, but they have the half an hour battery, and they got an hour battery. And back then, I think the hour battery was $2,200, just the battery.
Wow.
Yeah, but
And how heavy was that?
it felt like a regular Moster 185, but had the power thrust of like a 220.
Gotcha.
With a 185, with how much fuel? Like normal half
2 liters?
Like a couple gallons, I would assume, but had the thrust of a 220.
Yeah, it's just like electric cars. I mean, the electric cars are stupid off the gate, but long run, a gas car will kill it.
Yeah.
So it's it's the same thing. Have you ever seen the 4-bladed?
Oh, yeah.
Those look kind of interesting because of you got the thrust band with the smaller props, the lighter weight. But I mean, I would assume the ratio of the power drawn by those little KV motors versus the battery on those 4, aren't you more evenly distributing?
I think that you're thinking about the the Open PPG, and I think that's the one with the electrics. They had the original ones with 4 motors on it, right?
Yeah.
And with the SP-140, they got it right in the middle, and it looks just like a paramotor.
So that's the one that we have.
Yeah, so they actually run, regular, 135. I don't know if it had a 140 or not because I don't remember, but it had a lot of power. I mean, a lot of power. I was pretty, but I put in sport mode too.
Yeah. 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 And that's, I mean, I flew that one out there for like 5 or 10 minutes and I was like, yeah, I mean, it did have power. And when I took off with it, I mean, it did have a lot of power, but everyone else is going to take off with gasoline and fly for 2 hours. And at some point I'm going to have to turn around. So I didn't play with it long enough to really I mean, it was comfortable to sit in it, but yeah, I don't think I think in the next 5 years, the technology will be there for the electric stuff.
It needs to be at least 2 hours because when I go up and fly, I go up and fly for at least 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Because when I fill up my gas tank, I can do about 3. So I usually will stop at 2.5, only because I like to have that extra
Sure.
gas in there. And sometimes I'm just, doing a lot of stuff. So at 2.5 hours, I'm actually burnt up almost the entire thing. So
Yeah.
I love flying for hours upon hours. I just love to go up there and look at everything, get really high, cut the motor, do a lot of free flying because I love to free fly. I just don't want to go to top of a mountain and do some parawading because 9 times out of 10, you might be too much wind or you might just do a sled ride down, and I just don't want to wait for that.
Yeah. And that's what the guys in Northern Virginia, we get a lot of that out there. Have you ever been to the Northern Virginia? Have you ever been out there?
You mean the for free flight?
Yeah, like the mountains. I mean, we paramotor. I mean, I've posted a couple of the forms that were, because so the thing with the circus is it's a private co-op. Like you can't just use the field. So like, but if me or my instructor, if either one of us are out there, we open it up to like anybody that wants to come out and fly out of there. It's a really pretty place to fly because of the mountains, the Shenandoah Valley. You got the Appalachian Trail there. But what's neat is when you take off, there's like all these installations, like nuclear silo installations and CIA, and there's like Mount Weather that's like 200 stories under the ground. Like there's really all these places that you guys get in the air and you're like, man, let's go over there. I'm like, we'll talk about that when we get on the ground. Get on this side of the. So but you can get up to the mountains and like you said, you can, kill the motor. You get a real smooth, if you get an easterly wind, you get a real smooth ridge lift. So we fly out, we're kind of going downwind in a 2 or 3 mile an hour wind. But when you turn around, if you're high enough, you get that real easy, but it's like butter flow. And then if you're lucky, and then usually when you're out there, when we've done it, it'll pick up. We know it's picking up, and then it gets real aggressive. So then we motor back over to the field.
I've seen a couple of questions, but now I'm trying to go back and find them.
Crank bearings. How often do I see bad crank bearings?
There we go.
So crank bearings are supposed to be yanked out and thrown away at 300 hours. So that's a no, like, regardless of whether they're still quiet or not. I've seen them go bad at 75 hours. I would say between like 225 and 275 is when you're going to start hearing noise. And it's when you engage the propeller, it almost sounds like a grinding that's going on. And it's a nasty noise. Like it just doesn't sound right at all. That's your crank bearings.
I thought they were for 100 or 200 hours that they recommend.
I think at 200 or 150 is what they tell you to pull them at. I've ripped them out at, I mean, I've opened up 100, my personal unit at 150 hours. They were as smooth as butter. Now I'm running the AMSOIL and they were coated in the AMSOIL, that blue AMSOIL Sabre. So now I don't know about the modal oil. But
I did a Sabre also. Once I've gone to Sabre, I've had 0 engine problems.
Yeah. But I just personally, like at 300, I'll rip them out. But I mean, I don't even bother anymore at 150 because the couple of times that I spent all that time to do that, I mean, they were so smooth and in such good shape. I just left them in. I never even pushed them out. So
does it sound like rubbing when you turn the prop? Kind of like something's rubbing.
It's like I mean, you know what the normal sound of the motor is like when you engage the propeller, but then it starts to sound like this, like I'm trying to think of something that like we use in our day to day that I could compare it to. Have you ever heard of Ducati dry clutch?
No.
Google or YouTube Ducati dry clutch. So a dry clutch is it's a carbon fiber clutch plate, and the little springs on there just vibrate, and then when you release the clutch, it's got a really nasty sound to it. That is what the bearings sound like when they're starting to go. So if you guys Google that, Ducati dry clutch noise, YouTube it, and then that's what it starts to sound like when the bearings start to fail.
Okay.
And as the propeller is like winding down, it'll make like this wank, 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 wank noise in the unit. And you're like, what is that coming from? Most people think it's coming from the exhaust, like the tune pipe, but it's the actual bearings that you're hearing.
Huh.
Yeah.
So I got a stupid question for you. When I first got my Moser, of course, that I was using Motul because of the warranty, whatever.
Sure.
And to this day, I'm still using Motul. Before that, on my Atom 80, I was using dang it, Red. I can't remember.
Redline?
No, it was a good oil. I can't remember the name of it.
It wasn't Castrol TTS, was it?
No, it was an expensive oil, and I'd get it at the motorcycle shop, and just can't remember the name of it. But okay, so say I wanted to switch over to another oil. Is there a correct way to do it, or you
No.
just
No,
swap it out?
just switch it over. When you fill up a 5-gallon tank, just dump AMSOIL in it, throw it right in the motor. Just mix what you got in there. It's not going to hurt anything.
Okay, good.
No, I do that all the time. I mean, I'll have guys that'll come out, they'll bring me a motor that they broke in with modal, and then we just dump the AMSOIL in it. So it's not a big deal at all. The other thing too, that's really good for paramotors is go to like Walmart and get sea foam. It's in this little white bottle. It's like red and white. And it says
Seafoam is amazing. I run that too. Yes.
Yeah. So so I don't know where you guys all are, but like here, like October, usually we can fly up to about Thanksgiving, but this year it just got really windy. And in the 1 or 2 days that we did get it, just for me to drive an hour to get out to the field to fly for 30 minutes, it was just not worth it. But if you get into that case and you're going to sit the paramotor for 2 or 3 months, take the white cap on the top of that seafoam can, fill it with the seafoam, and dump it in your paramotor tank, and it'll stabilize any ethanol fuel that you use in there. If you don't use ethanol fuel, it doesn't matter. But everyone's like, ethanol does this, that. Well, I've used non-ethanol fuel and ethanol fuel, and my lines still get hard at the same hours. They still crack at the same hours. So that's all. And these, power band difference, same. So, I mean, I don't necessarily buy, the ethanol eats up paramotors or anything like that, or 2-stroke motors. I mean, I run 93. I know people run 87 in it. I recommend 93 with the AMSOIL Sabre. And I've run low lead 100 avgas in it, and you actually lose about 2.5, if not 3 pounds of thrust.
Really?
Yeah, because the low lead 100 is super high lead content, so it burns really cool. So you drop the RPMs a little bit, and that RPM drop turns out to be like 3 pounds of thrust that you're losing. Which, when you're flying, I'm flying both. My motors now are 140 props, so it's like I don't even use half power to take off anymore.
Nice. The prop size really does make a difference. I mean, I went from the 130, which came with my motor. I kept catching lines. I got tired of that, so I got the 125. I went down one size on the prop, but you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
125 and 130. So I could imagine the 140. Man, that'd be nice.
The 140 on the 22 Colorado, and I'm 10 pounds from the max weight range on that with a full tank of fuel. I'll take off at like 6,000 RPM, and I'll climb at like 200 feet per minute at like 6,800 RPM with the 140. If I go to full power, like it's literally like this. People are like, "Oh my God." Like people will ask, "Can you actually pendulum around?" I'm like, "No." Right. I don't know if you could stall it if you like really tried to push it.
I have often wondered that if you could stall the wing like that but if you got enough power, I mean, I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm not going to try it. With 2 kids, with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and life insurance.
You'll be fine.
We'll send it to Tucker. We'll ask Tucker to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like that 140 is stupid power. So, and that seafoam, I'm telling you, that seafoam is amazing stuff. Put it in your fuel, put it in your tank.
Stable? Is that, I mean,
It's a stabilizer. It's an octane booster, and it'll eliminate the water buildup from the ethanol. It'll also help the crack, hardening of the lines and stuff like that. So when I put it in there, I'll turn the motor on and run it for like bringing up the RPM for like 2 minutes just to heat it up, because it pulls that throughout the entire motor, the carb and everything, and then just shut it off, and I'll leave it for 3 or 4 months, and it'll fire on the second or third pull every time when I start it back up again.
Well, the AMSOIL Sabre also has a stabilizer in it also.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah. So the AMSOIL Sabre also has a stabilizer. And when you put in that seafoam, it just makes everything it feels really good. Matter of fact, I also put the non-ethanol 87 in mine, and I feel like I got more power in the 87 than the 93. So I just been running
Really?
yeah, so I've been using the 87 for the last 3 years. No problems
No
with
kidding.
yeah.
And it's 87 not
87 non-ethanol.
okay. I have that. Yeah, I have that like a mile from my house. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's only like $3 a gallon, and regular gas is 250 here. So
Yeah.
it's really not that much more. And you can fly an awful lot,
That's
with
crazy. Our gas is like $4 a gallon here.
wow.
Yeah. It was like, I just felt we have an Infinity with 93. It was like 427 a gallon.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. That's
man,
crazy.
I remember when it was under $1.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
We'll never see that again, but
Like 78.9 or something like that, or
yeah,
89.9.
that's crazy.
I remember that when I was growing up. I mean, how cheap it was. When we were kids, we had, mopeds that we drove around and stuff. So I remember putting 50 cents in to fill up our tank,
That's crazy.
the gallon tank on it. Yeah.
That's back to what I was telling you. I always get a kick out of people that like they'll bark about the cost of paramotoring. And I'm always like, well, hey, meet me at Lancaster. We'll go up in an R44 for 2 hours. And then when you stroke me a check for $1,000 and you get nothing out of it, like you don't even get to grab all three, the collective, the cyclic, or the rudder pedals. You just touch it's like
I know, right? And at least with the paramotor, when you go and get a burger, it's a $20 burger, not 100, definitely not a $2,000 burger.
right. Yeah,
Dude, you know how much it is? It is freaking expensive to go out to eat nowadays. I mean, even the cheap stuff, you can't get out of there without, for 2 people, 20 something dollars easily.
Yeah.
That's the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Crazy.
Did that
It's
answer
crazy.
your question, Tony? Hope so. He was asking about pump gas. I think we covered it.
We chat. Oh, I didn't even pull the chat up.
I gotta head out shortly.
Well, it is over.
Lock everything up.
We're about to start the show. Don't leave.
I know, right? This was just a pre-show. Now we're ready to actually do some stuff. Well, it is after 9 o'clock, and like I always say, this right here, it takes a little something to make this look pretty all the time, and a lot of it's sleep. So Grandpa needs to get some sleep to keep this appearance up, right? So
Oh, you're just glowing tonight. You've just been glowing,
uh,
Grandpa. You got that grandpa glow,
aw, that sounds
Yeah.
like something I need to bottle
Yeah.
and sell at Walmart, some grandpa glow.
I'll send you my 4-year-old. My 5-year-old. He was up at 4 this morning for whatever known reason. He's ready to go.
They're funny.
Oh
Yeah.
John Wayne remembers 32 cents a gallon and a 14 cents gas war. I guess 14 cents they were having a gas war. That's pretty
crazy.
at 14 cents a gallon.
Yep.
That's crazy.
My dad said that back when he was a kid, he would work for a dime a day on big smokestacks, because, there wasn't any labor laws back then. And a dime was a really good wage back in the day to work all day for 10 cents.
Did you see the latest DOD? So I'm trying to think of what it was. I just got, and I don't know if it's public or not, but it was, so the cost of living, I think the number has gone up 131% since 2015 or 16.
I believe it.
The hourly wages increases have only gone up 27%.
Well, look at from 2020 to now. I mean, I went from $1.99 for chicken breast, now it's $3.99. You know,
Yeah.
meat has doubled in price. Everything's doubled in price. Everything has doubled in price except for Twinkies and big screen
Right.
TVs. They want you inside watching your big TV, eating your snacky cakes. It's so cheap to do that.
That's what I'm saying. Eight Bojangles, 8 pieces of chicken and 4 biscuits, over $20. I mean, dang man, I used to get that for $9.99, you know?
Not worth
Wow.
going
No,
out there.
$8.99. Sorry, I remember.
But those
Sure, you
chicken,
go out for pizza and wings and you're paying just as much as if you go out and have a really nice dinner, right?
That's
I mean,
why
Feels like it.
I cook at home. I do all the cooking. I love to cook, so I do all the cooking at home. We very rarely go out to eat, only because I can get a couple of steaks, mashed potatoes, and whatever, and pay, you know, less than $20, you
right?
know, for a big, you know, for two people having big old, you know, steak and potato meals. You
Sure.
can't go out there and get a steak for less than $20, let alone two people for $20.
If you guys ever come to this area, we'll take you to this. I'll take you to this local organic Amish farm. They'll give you half a cow for like $300, and they'll process everything for you on site. They'll flash freeze it, and they don't use any pesticides. They don't use anything.
So you can get half a cow for 300?
I don't know if it's like. I'll put it this way: we have a chest freezer it's got to be like 4 feet wide by like what 3 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And $300 will fill it.
That's awesome because half a cow over here a couple of years ago was 250.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that's about because we were talking about going in on a full cow with another couple with kids.
Mhm.
And I think it was around like six or like with them for the cow, them to process it and cut all the steak, you know what I mean? To cut all the different
Right.
strips of meat and stuff out of it. I think all in for the whole thing was like $900
For a whole cow.
for the whole cow, and then all processed out.
That's really good.
Yeah, but we're in Amish country. I mean, I run in the summer and I'm running in these neighborhoods, and the horses and the buggies, they go by me and they're like, hey.
That's what we need to do is put a wing on a horse, have them
So
run really.
they're interested. Because it's not electrical, and they are allowed to use anything with gasoline or diesel.
Yep.
So they are very interested in paramotoring. I actually did train an entire Mennonite church this past summer. That's where most of my time was. And they're like, we have like 3 or 4 other churches that want you to come up here they're in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And I was like, how many people are we talking here? He goes, maybe like 15 or, 15 to 20, 25. And it was, but they've got to be close to their farm. And I was, because they got to work the farm. Yeah. And I was like, well, you do realize that, like, well, we could start at like 4 a.m. I'm like, well, we can't do it in dark. Like, it's like, but they're devoted, and they're like, they love it. Like they fly. He probably flies more than any of, I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, he flies more than any of my students that I've trained. And
Interesting how people, they go gung-ho right away. They go out and fly, they fly. And after that first year, it's hard to find people that will go out and fly as much as they did the first year. It's like they got the flying out of their system, and I was like, now what?
Yeah. This guy, I mean, he is crazy. He loves it. And it's his whole church is involved with it. I was like,
that's nice, man. Well, and the Mennonites are a little more lax than the
It is. The problem with me is doing helicopter stuff for almost 26, 27 years now. We have the worst mouths of any other mechanic on the planet. So because nothing ever usually works out like you want it to. So I am like always so cautious of what I say, how I say it. It's like,
yeah.
You'd have a lot of fun up there during, what is it, Rumspringa?
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Rumspringa?
Yeah, Rumspringa. Yeah,
where they can go wild, whatever, to get it out of their system.
Yeah, for a year. Yeah.
That's funny.
But anyway. But hey guys, I appreciate you inviting me on here tonight. And like I said, if there's anything that you guys have, I'll post that link to the little mic boom thing. If there's anything else that comes up, if you just throw it in the chat, I look at it. We have 4 businesses on top of the paramotor and the flight schools, and then the Mac Para stuff that I do. So
Mhm.
I check my phone like, like this type of stuff, like maybe 2 or 3 times a day. So if I don't respond, I will respond. I always get back to people. It just takes me a minute. And then with the kids on top of all of that, like we're literally always running around with our heads chopped off. So
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate your time, Brian. This was, yeah. I mean,
And it went back so
I
quick
learned a
too.
lot tonight, just listening to everything, or all the stuff you're talking about. And yeah, thank you so much. I
yeah,
really
absolutely.
appreciate it. You're welcome, anytime. Come and hang with us on Monday nights.
I will.
Mm.
What's funny is usually when you guys start up, that's when I put the kids to bed early tonight. So that's about like bedtime. So
Oh,
that's why I'm never on any of these, because all these shows are
Okay.
like right in the middle of when we're trying to clean up the house or
Sure.
like we start work when they go to bed. So
Sure.
there's a couple of them that you've had posted that I'm like Sean, I've known Sean and Rachel forever. And I was like, I wanted to see that. And I'm just like, kids,
well,
kids.
they are on the audio also. So we do
Yeah.
this, and then we also post our audio to our audio. So at your favorite podcasting app, just search for PPG
Yeah.
Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast. We're up. You can listen to all the shows in your car instead of trying to pull up a screen and watch it.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that. So I'll pull it. I'll down. It's what did you say? It's PPG Grandpop. It's an app.
Yeah, no, it's just at your whatever your favorite podcasting app.
Yeah.
If you just search for PPG Grandpa
It'll
Paramotor
pop up.
Podcast,
Okay.
because that's how I started everything off with
Gotcha.
PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast.
Gotcha.
And then we've changed some stuff throughout the throughout the years.
Yeah.
And so the original is still PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast. I'm not going to change that because what is the show called? I mean, it's Clear Prop TV, PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast, Clear Prop, paratalk.org, and also now run to the Sky Paramotor Podcast, because it's our nonprofits podcast now.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of names for it. So I'm just trying to keep everything easy. PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast.
Yeah, I can do that because I'm on the road a lot. I get a lot of downtime.
I get
Cool.
a lot of truckers that say, thank you for letting this thing go for hours instead of just 1 hour, because man, the time on the road just goes by so quicker.
Yeah.
You covered my ride from Anchorage all the way down to Raleigh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are any of you guys going to be over at Indiana, the Indiana fly-in?
When is that?
Usually I think last year they did it in April.
I'm going to try to hit all the major fly-ins this year coming up.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's a major one. It's a good one. So if you guys come out there, there's like 10 of us in our group. It's Richard Turner's group, Clear Sky PPG, out in, I think he's in Indiana or yeah, I think they're all out of Indiana or Ohio. But we found there's this one flight that we did. There's a casino and there's like these mansions that line this river there. It's by French Lick. It is absolutely breathtaking. So if you guys are out there, we kind of keep it on the DL because there's a few places that we flew for like ice cream. There's like an animal safari that you got to go over and be careful because there's like bears and lions and like tigers. So we're flying along and we're like, hey, shit, there's like a tiger. Oh, there's lions.
Wow.
Yeah, we should have flew around it, but we didn't know it was there. So we were like, this is not good, but it's a really cool area to fly.
Why motor maintenance is important. Good motor maintenance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That should be just a landing and like a GoPro, and be like, this is why you always have to check your stuff before you take off.
Yeah. Yeah. Or else.
But yeah, it's Richard Turner, I think, is the one that puts on Richard Turner, Jeff Biggs. Who else is part of that crew? I don't know. It's all those Ohio guys. A lot of the Purdon guys are out there, but it's a really good. It's not big. It's not like a Moe's or like a Bad Apples or a Dave Purdon's, but it's there's probably like 50, 60 people that show up.
That's comfortable.
Yeah. And you get some young Yankee Banky, like, let me look at me.
Banky.
That's what I call it, the Yankee Banky. Look at me, look at what I can do. I'm like, you do realize that all 150 of us can do the same thing. To take off and want to fly in front of you. But then after it's like,
yeah.
After the
That's
first day,
funny.
they kind of get the gist and they're like, they get up and get out.
That's funny. Oh, so you're one of those Yankee Banky guys, huh?
Yeah.
And potty mouth.
Yeah.
Hey, are you going to Moonshiners this year?
I was hoping I'm gonna try to get that. I'm not going to Bad Apples. I'm not going to Salton Sea. I'm not going to Moe's. I did that all that stuff last year because of the Colorado 2 release.
Mhm.
But we have so much stuff going on. Like the kids are getting older and they have events going on, and it's just like it honestly, a lot of it's just for me, like I don't actually go down there to fly with that stuff. There's just too many people. There's too many novice people up there.
Yeah.
And I think at Bad Apples, I sat when I wasn't working on an engine, just sat in a chair and just watched all the casualty right in front of me. I mean, literally, it's like same thing at Purdon's. I mean, we flew more at Purdon's than I've ever flown at any fly-in, but we took off and we flew like an hour and a half north or in that valley.
Yeah.
We got away from everybody immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't, there's nothing really to promote for MacPara stuff. And it's just like, we're in the DC metro area. I mean, I could put 150 people into a class, you know what I mean, every year and not miss a beat. I don't know if I want to, I don't want to commit to that many people.
Right.
Well,
So
don't forget to have fun, man, while you're flying, you know?
no, I haven't flown. The last time I flew for fun was Dave Purdon's.
That's not good enough.
No, because in October, I did 16 flights, instructional flights.
Yeah.
I had all these guys that want to train this year. And I was like, we had this like 2-day perfect window. So I set up the tandem. We have a Phoenix trike and I set it up and I just cranked out flights, just like, all right. So, but yeah, I don't really get to fly for fun anymore. It's even when I do go out there for fun, it becomes something's wrong with my motor. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I gotta fix it. Yeah.
It's always something, and then like we have a lot of guys, they got the new Viper, the cross country Viper. And a lot of them flew the Viper. We got the free ride. We got the Luna 2. They all kind of compared it to the Colorado 2. And the Viper, for some reason, I ordered like 2 or 3 of these Viper cross countries, and the brake lines were just a mess. Like the lengths were all out of whack, and I'm like, so we were out there one day. We didn't even fly. We just sat for 3 hours out there fixing these wings. I'm like,
Wow.
I know. I'm like, and that's a pretty advanced wing, right? I mean, it's like, I remember flying the original Viper when it came out. I was with Chad Bastian out in Moe's, and I don't know if somebody was new when at the factory.
Cutting their teeth on someone's wing.
Right? They all came in the same shipment, and I was like, "What the heck?" They were all out of whack. So it was a beautiful day too. Of course, it was no wind, so and we just fixed brake lines.
Weird.
Yeah, I know it is weird. That's like the guy that I told you at the Colorado 2 at 29. He was a trike guy in Florida. He's like the 2D steering and everything was all out of whack. So he took it to Eric Dufour and they fixed it. So I'm like, and that's what the Viper thing was. It was all the way the lines were all connected. It was all, if you pulled, it was like the tension, like the wingtip line, the Stabilo lines were so tight you'd collapse the wingtips in. We had to adjust all the lengths.
Weird.
It was weird.
That's odd. I mean, I've had my MacParas that come with like extra long.
I know.
Brake.
Well, that's for trikes.
Yeah,
that's high hang point trikes. Yeah,
but that was it. It's the only thing I had to adjust. But even those were equal. I mean, they were the equal lengths.
Yeah, and well, what's scary for me is like I know a lot. I know and flown a lot of these wings, but I don't use those products all the time. So like, I'm only going off of what I know from MacPara, because I've been true to MacPara for 20 years. I mean, I've owned other wings just because I've wanted to, I thought they were interesting and I flew them, and then I always ended up going back to MacPara. Mm-hmm. And so I'm doing this for them, and I'm like, listen, like I don't fly these wings all the time. So like I'll test fly it just to make sure that it's where it needs to be, but I don't know if that's like where it should be or not.
Right.
And then they reached out to somebody that was really familiar with it, and they're like, no, that's how it's supposed to be. So it was just something they just tied it short before they shipped it. Yeah. So
Well,
Interesting.
Mac is a good wing.
it is. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I mean, I've flown a lot of it. There's like everything has like one or two differences that I like. Like the Luna 2. I think the Luna 2 is a nice wing. Um, I don't think that any of them get rid of that oscillation like that Colorado 2. You can go into a full roll with that Colorado 2 and almost let go, and the wing will go 1, 2, and stop, and you're flying straight and level again.
Really?
Yeah, the free ride, that what is it, free ride? That wing was like you could never. It made me sick. It was like trying to get my.
That was the free ride. Isn't that the one that's like super responsive?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Like
The
even
only
when
one-
you just let go of the brakes, I felt like I was getting nauseous.
The only one that ever, did that number to me where, I have to like actively, work on it was my Gen Vantage.
Yes.
And
I
that
flew
one
that.
always oscillated. I mean, you have to hold on to it, to keep it from
Yep.
oscillating. But if you stowed the brakes, it wouldn't take long for you to be doing this number. And
Yeah.
if I didn't catch it, I think it'd do a barrel roll or
Right.
On autopilot.
on autopilot, man.
Right. I've been on that. I flew that. I've flown. I like I said, I like to fly everything. Everyone's like, you do that, as a Mac pair. I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's always good to be able to talk, like to be able to explain to people. Well, this was my experience. It's maybe not what you feel or experience,
Right.
but this is my experience when I compare this, and this. And like I said, Luna 2 and the Viper, the cross country. It's like, I mean, the Colorado. And I think the thing with the Colorado is the people that are interested in that level of wing, they want it to be more aggressive. And you can be aggressive on it, but it's minimal aggressive. If you're just going to go out there and climb the 3,000 feet and bang wing overs and tumble and do all the crazy stuff, then, I mean, that's not the wing that you need. So that's not what they're after. They're not trying to get that market.
They want it to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They want a perfect wing.
Yeah. And it's
I'll
like,
tell you, one of the most advanced wings that I fly that's very stable in my opinion is the APCO F3. It has a short chord, wingtip is kind of long. It can penetrate through pretty much anything. It has 2D tied into it. And you can do whatever you want to, stow the brakes while you're oscillating, and it'll go shoot just like that, almost like an A-wing.
really,
Very, very stable. You'd think that a C-wing wouldn't be stable and you'd have to be more actively piloting,
Sure.
but it's it's my favorite wing so far.
what is it, an APCO what?
F3.
F3. I have not flown that.
Yeah, very,
APCO.
very, very fast, very lifty.
What size did you fly?
It only goes up to a 26, so I
Okay.
have a 26.
Gotcha. So I'll have to, I'm sure there's somebody in the Maryland, DC market that has it. There was, what was it? One of the single cell wings I flew. That was an interesting
Single cell or single skin?
single skin. Sorry, a single
Okay.
skin wing that way. And I forget what it was, and it was new, but dude, that was an interesting experience. Like to look up and just see like where the little, I don't know what they are, the little V's where the lines are attached to
Right.
it's just like after flying for so long with just a regular glider to look up and see that, it's like almost unnerving. I'm like, I don't know if I'm high enough if this thing starts to rip apart. It was like super slow. You know what I mean? It's like there's just
Right.
like this sixth sense of like, wow, there's not a lot of skin. There's not a lot above me.
So is the whole thing was a single skin? It wasn't like a hybrid skin? Where half
Now,
of it,
well, I guess like the back of it was all.
so maybe it was a hybrid skin. So APCO makes a hybrid skin, and I've flown those before too. I mean, it doesn't have much of a flare authority, but the front end is double, and then half of it from
Yes, that's what it was.
is single skin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe it was an APCO hybrid.
That's what I think it may have been. It was one of the guys in Maryland brought it up, and he hadn't flown it. He was like, "Yeah, I've been kiting it. I don't know if I'm comfortable flying." I was like, "I'll go fly it." So I took
It's a
off.
nice wing. It's a nice wing. The trim range is about this big
Yeah,
though.
that's what it was then, and it was super slow. compared to
Mhm.
like the color. Yeah, it was very slow. It reminded me of a Muse, like a Muse 4. And I remember coming in, like you said, I remember coming in and there wasn't really a landing. It was just like my feet hit the ground. And there was just nothing else there
You got to take a wrap on those for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But it was an interesting experience. Like I said, it wasn't the flying part of it. It was just looking up and seeing there's not a whole lot there that the back lines are attached to.
I know.
Yeah.
That's a terrible feeling too, when you don't have any more flare left. I mean, and you still need it. I mean,
No.
Anytime you take a new wing up, when you come in for a landing, take a wrap just so you have it, just because
Yeah.
you don't know if it has
Okay.
a good flare or not.
Yeah. Well, the crazy part is like it doesn't matter how many hours you have, like even in a helicopter, like the rotaway. I don't know if you're familiar with rotaway helicopters. They're like these home built helicopters, and a lot of them use belts like for their rudder.
Right.
And like the thought of a belt to me just freaks me out.
Yeah.
I know it's okay, and it's like been a proven like FAA approved thing for like years, like 60 years.
Yeah, but
But in
okay.
my head, yeah, I mean, a Black Hawk helicopter, it's like the highest temp stainless steel like on the planet, or a CH-53, or all this like S-92, the S-76. I mean, this is all the stuff that I work and fly, right? And it's like, and when you're landing on a roof in New York City with a 40-mile-an-hour head gust or something like that, like I don't want a belt behind me, like turning the blades. Like, so when you look up and I saw that, like that's all in my head I could focus on. Like I couldn't get that out of my head, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm good. And I just he was like, well, if you are okay with it, I'm okay with it. And he flew it like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, the last time at the end of the summer when he came back out, he had his Charger with him, and I'm like, where's that other wing at? He goes, yeah, I'm the same way. He's like, I don't like that feeling. I'm like, I know it's just
They're so light though. I mean, they're so
Wow.
light. The large can ball up to, no kidding, this big,
yeah,
fit into a hike and fly
yeah.
pack. I mean,
Well,
they're
they don't even
so
need
light.
wind. I mean, when we took off, I don't think we had any wind, and I mean, I could have done a reverse. I mean,
Oh, I know 2 miles an hour is like reverse.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell? It just pops up like, I mean, it's great. Don't
Yeah.
use those in high wind though. Those are great for low wind or nil wind.
Really? Why? What
Mm.
happens in high wind? They collapse, or?
No, they just don't have a forward penetration, so you start to fly backwards.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And they pop up so quick,
Yeah.
on very low wind. So, they're great for no wind morning runs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're actually good for light triking also. It really inflates quickly and does really good for light trikes.
You know what? I wonder if that would be a good training wing. Does it overfly?
No,
It doesn't.
it doesn't really overfly.
Yeah. I didn't. I mean, I didn't. I only did it once. I only took it up for like 10 minutes one time, so I didn't.
But then again, I can't really say if it does or doesn't, because I'm so used to checking it anyway.
Yeah.
When it comes up forward or reverse, I mean, it's whatever pops up. I mean, just like you've been flying for such a long time, you could pretty much fly an Afghan.
Right.
It's like no big deal.
Yeah.
So maybe for new students, I don't know. But for me, I didn't have any problems with it.
Yeah, I have a lot of, it's weird because most of my students are foot launch people. And in the end of this year, I would say 50% of the guys that want to come out, and I have a bunch of women this year too. They all want wheels. They all want trikes.
Wheels
Really?
are awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, we have the Phoenix. Is that a Phoenix there that you have behind you?
I believe so.
Something.
What is it?
Mini.
Oh, the Mini 3 or the Mini 2 fly
uh,
products.
I can't remember. Mini something.
There's a Mini
There's
2, a Mini
many.
3.
I can't remember half the names of these trikes.
Yeah. I don't remember.
The white and the orange.
I'd be like, yeah, that's what it is.
That one? Yeah, it's that one. We have the Phoenix, and we have the Phoenix with the Cosmos 300 on there. And I've been in the fly products. I've been in a bunch of them, and I find that I'm 6'1", and I find that the fly products, I'm always sitting and my feet are like this. I'm up here, and my knees are like always smashed. I can't ever stretch out in it. But that Phoenix, that Power to Fly Phoenix, it really lets you stretch out. And what I like about it is I took a couple of guys that were like 275. One was 275, one was 290. And I was like, man, I hope these hang points they're as far forward as you go for the tandem setup. and dude, it is smooth as butter. And what I like about it is the passenger is not backing into you, and they don't interfere with anything that you're doing. Yeah, it's nice. That the fly product version of that, and I've flown the fly product version with the road tax on it, and then the regular Cosmos 300. I've even flown the fly product one with the Moser on it, and it is. I feel like it's such a short chassis. It's a nice setup, but it's such a short chassis compared to that Phoenix, and it's a little lower. Which for people with trailers, I understand why it's like the go-to because they can get it into their trailers. The Phoenix, if you don't have that 8x, I think it's a 4x8. It ain't going in there really without taking the hoop apart.
That's a trike buggy, Tony says.
The trike buggy?
Trike buggy, yeah.
Gotcha.
There. Hey, there was
Yeah.
one last question there with was it Paul? He said, what about the Spider 3? I've not heard anything bad about the Spider 3.
No, I haven't either. There's like 2 or 3 of them that we have out at the some of the local guys out at the field, but I don't think any of them. I remember being out there one afternoon, and I recall I just didn't get to fly them because I don't think they were my size. I think they were just way too small. So
yeah, that's probably a pretty good wing. I mean, everyone that I know that has a Spider 3 says it's a good wing.
I flew a Spider 3. Somebody had one and let me fly it. And my first one was a Roadster 3, and the Spider 3 just feels like the same thing as a Roadster. It's just lighter material. And doing the reverse is kind of like that hybrid wing. It just will pop up in 2-mile-an-hour reverse. It's like, you can, especially in a nil wind, you can do a forward in a nil wind with the Spider 3, and it just, ridiculously easy to pop up.
I think I would say that's probably in line with the Charger too. It's pretty, a Charger 2, I have students out that do reverses in like a 1 or 2 mile an hour wind with a Charger 2. So, I don't even use my A's most when I fly a Charger. I fly a Charger 223, and it's 296 is the max load, and I'm like 290, I think, all up with a full tank of fuel. And if I have at least a 3 mile an hour wind, I don't ever grab the A's. I just go back, take 2 steps back, and the wing pops up and it stops. So, but I haven't flown the 3. I haven't flown that Spider 3 with the Charger to compare apples to apples. I think the ones that are out there, the guys that are out there are small. They're from Maryland, and they're big. Like, they got a bunch of wings, but a lot of them are acro wings. But they're all like 18 or 2018, something like, I don't know. But I remember when I was out there, I'm like, yeah, no. It's funny, the older you get, the more things that go through your head before you just strap onto something. 10 years ago, I would have just strapped into it regardless of what size it was and just gone.
Right.
Now it's like, all right, is the life insurance up? The kids, like, how's that going to work out with the wife? Because it's like 10 years ago.
I've always liked the bigger wings, only because, they take off so quick. Even in nil wind, I can take off in 10, 15 steps with nil wind, maybe a little bit more if I have the Atom 80 instead of Moster 185. But all in all, I really like bigger wings. They just are very comfortable.
Yeah.
And you can come in and almost land in one spot. You don't have to walk very far. You just come in and whoop, butterfly land. So much easier on my knees and back having a bigger wing rather than trying to bleed off all that energy in a smaller wing. It's like, it just doesn't sound fun to old grandpa. I want to just go up and fly and have fun.
It's funny. I have a very similar comparison, but all of my students are on like the size wing they should be flying. Right. And if I fly the Colorado 2 or the Charger 23, I just keep having to turn around and burn fuel to keep up with them. So then I go to a Charger 225 and I'm like right where they are. So, and like you said, I get up there and I'll clip the brakes and just kind of cross my legs and just, you just don't have to think about anything because everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
That is no fun. Being in a group and being the last one, it's just like, there go your buddies,
Yeah. I flew with a bunch of students in the middle of the summer, and we flew up to Lake Redmond, which is right on 83. and it's not too far from the airfield. And I had the Colorado 20, I had a Colorado 20, and I kept having to turn around. I was trim neutral.
Mhm.
And then I realized, I'm like, I didn't take off with more than a half a gallon or half a tank of fuel. And no sooner did I go through my head, and I'm like, I'm gonna get the mirror out and take a look. I was
Yeah.
probably about a mile out, and I was like, I'm gonna get some altitude to make sure. Sure
This
enough,
comes at a
boom,
cost, doesn't it?
motor shuts off, and I'm like, dead stick. So yeah, no, I totally get that. And then when I remember when I flew the 25 and I landed, I was like, man, this is so nice. With it's so butter smooth.
Well, it's also nice too with a bigger wing because you don't have to use as much gas, right? And
Yeah.
once you get, so I can go really slow. If I pull my trims in, I can just barely, at 25%, and I could just maintain and cruise. I'm not flying with anybody where I need to go fast, but if I need to go fast, I can dump my trims and full throttle and just haul butt, man.
Yeah.
So I can go nice and slow with A-wings or shoot out there with the speedsters.
Do you use the speed bar with that all the time or no?
No, not all the time. Only if I'm going to be going like across country will I put on a speed bar, only because, I might need that extra penetration,
Sure.
maybe, depending on what altitude I get at and if I'm going to or fro, depending on the wind.
Gotcha.
So I'll put it on just in case. But
Yeah.
if I just tool around and have fun, I don't.
Don't waste your time. Yeah.
No, only because it has the F3 has a huge trim range. So even if you trim out, you're really hauling some butt.
Gotcha.
I think I'm going to take my speed bar off because I never use it.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I've put it on just like when the Colorado 2 came out, and I flew it a couple times with it, but I took it off. I just, I don't need it. Like, I mean, if I trim out all the way, like you said, I mean, there's enough trim on it that. Oh, that was something that I was going to tell. A lot of people ask us about the stitching on the trim on the wings.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if that applies to the Ozones or the APCO stuff, but in Mac Para, if you trim and you put the trim tab on the stitching, you can use the main toggle, whether it's the Colorado or the Charger 2 or the Samurai. So there's like a blue, an orange, a white, and then I think a red and a whatever, I forget what the bottom color is. So if you set a trim on one of those lines that are that's stitched in the riser, you can use the main toggle. But if you go above the top line on either one of those gliders, that's when you have to go to the wingtip steering.
Okay.
Which is a really common question.
I usually go tip steering if I go past neutral.
Yeah, so I don't know what about your wing. So yeah, I read the manual on the wing, but the manual, the Mac Para manuals are definitely confusing because it's Czech. It's like Czech, that they've converted into like 10 different languages, and the verbiage, the translation was not very clear.
Does it show on your trims where the neutral is supposed to be?
Yeah, it's white. Neutral and Mac Para wings are always white.
Okay.
So that's takeoff, landing, your normal flying. So, but if you wanted to just like, let's say you were just a little behind the crew that you were with, you just wanted to dump it out like an inch, you're still in the main toggle. And if you dump it out, to the second line, you've picked up quite a bit of speed, but you're still okay to be on the main toggle. But if you go all the way out to the hoop that you pull the trim back in on, then they definitely want you on the wingtip steering. And another question that I get a lot, and this applies to other manufacturers too, if it's not set up or in the manual to be set up for 2D steering, they do not want you making it a 2D wing. So if it's set up so like the Charger, not the Charger 2, but the Charger is not a 2D wing. The Charger is not a 2D wing, but people will rig the brakes to be a 2D wing to get more responsiveness out of it. That is against all the manufacturer recommendations. They tell directly from the test pilot and the manufacturer, they say if you want to fly 2D, buy a 2D wing.
I agree.
I
I agree. Well, the thing is too, if they're not tied in, it's not like you can't just reach up and grab that. Now you're basically tied in with your fingers and use it like you're tied in, but at least you got the opportunity. See, I like them when they're separate personally. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do like the ones that that I have that are tied in. I'll do like that. But the ones that are not tied in, it's actually pretty nice to be able to stow your brakes, and then just reach up and grab the tip steering and make that big turn, stow and keep them go. Because when I fly, I don't hold brakes. I don't hold nothing. I stow and I fly. When I want to make a turn, I'll reach up and turn, and then I'll stow again. Pretty much.
Well, I mean, I just go outside line. I don't even, if I'm just kind of cruising along, I'll just kind of, go back from. But Paul Marzano, he did have another question. It kind of ties in what we're talking about. So he wants to know what to expect with 2D steering. And I can tell you that I will never own a wing now that does not have it. I'd love that. And so the ability to, you got your toggles and you're making your turns. If you have the 2D tied in, am I calling it the right thing? 2D,
Yeah,
right?
2D.
Right.
Yeah, 2D steering.
Yeah, 2D steering tied in, just for a little pressure, this direction goes a lot further that direction, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so pressure towards your chest.
Yes, that's right.
Because I see a lot of this with 2D.
Oh yeah, no. So I mean, you could still use it normal, whatever, but just a little towards you provides a lot of extra force that direction without all the extra effort on your part. So I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I won't. I don't like flying a wing that doesn't have at least tip steering on it. It doesn't have to be tied in, but a tip steering does make a huge difference.
Yeah, and it does. Yeah, it was Purdon's actually. There was a guy, and it wasn't a Mac Para wing, but he got a new wing, and I forget what wing it was. And we were flying, and I was like, dude, why do you keep doing this? He's like, man, the 2D is incredible. And I landed, I'm like, that's not how it works, man. I was like, did you get the manual? And he's like, no. I was like, because he kept doing this, like he was doing these big turns, and he kept doing like this with his hands, like, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's in, and he was telling me this, and he's like all excited. And I was like, he's like, no. And I'm like, go fly the wing and go do it this way. And he was like, holy cow, man.
You know what he was doing is that if you do pull it out this way, what you're doing is you got the brake toggle here, so you can pull your brake this way or this way, and it's still going to pull a lot from that brake toggle. So if you are pulling out this way, you are actually making big turns,
right?
But you're not using your tip steering.
Yeah,
it's like,
but you are pulling your brake a lot more because of that pull.
But when he figured out the right way to do it, he was like, wow, this thing is like scary. And I'm like, you'll get used to it. Just be careful, like slow. Don't just yank, go crazy yanking and banking it. So like, he was like, yeah, but I, for the life of me, and we flew for like an hour behind each other. I was right there with him for a good bit of it. And he was just all along the river and just going, in those big farm fields when you go, I don't know what direction. I think it's when you take off and you follow. You don't go to the bridge, you go the other direction down the river. And for an hour, he kept doing this. And I'm like, what is he? And he didn't have a radio. And I'm like, what is he doing? So I have it on GoPro too. And I almost put it in the clip, like just did like a 15-second. And I'm like, no, because I don't know who knows him or if,
you could have set that to music somehow. Tony, yeah, you can land with tip steering if that's all you got, man. You can land with no steering.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he's asking, not quite sure.
So if you lose the brake toggles or you lose anything, just reach up and grab the D risers. And just know that when you go directly to the D risers, it's going to get real sensitive. So if you come in and flare like this, you can't do that with D risers. So you're just going to come in and add pressure with the D risers, and it'll give you the same authority as if you let's say you chopped a brake off, or you nicked the line, or something. You're doing something stupid and something got caught in your prop. You just grab the D risers and it'll do the same exact thing.
Right. But if you have one brake that works and one doesn't, don't do the one brake that works and the D. It's either both Ds or both brakes.
Yeah, definitely stow with the brake and just use your Ds. I actually fly like that, like you were talking about, like their long flights that we do. I just reach up and grab the Ds and turn. I don't even grab the toggles or the lines anymore.
Yeah. Wait, say that again.
When I fly those long we do a lot of long flights here. Like we plan like 80 to like 90 miles, like 45 miles each way, depending on the winds, obviously. And there's times where we get out there and then the winds shift and we're like, oh crap, like we're not going to make this back.
Yeah.
So, but what I'll do is I'll stow my brakes and I'll trim wherever we're going. And then if I need to, I'll just reach up and I'll grab the D and just put a little pressure on the D to correct whatever direction that I need to correct to.
Now, see, I do the same thing with but I'll use the outside tip line is what I do. But maybe it's better I didn't really think about that way, I guess.
So on are you still flying the Charger?
In Colorado,
You're on the 2 or the 1?
the 1.
So on the 2, the stability line is like way out.
Oh, okay.
So on the way that it's tied in.
Okay.
So you have 2D you have 2D steering in the Colorado?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little different on the 2. So it's like everyone's like, "Oh, it's so I want to pull it in tight." And I'm like, "No, don't do that until you like go fly it for, they take off and they're like, something looks like it's wrong. It's not. It's just the way that the lines are set up." So the 2D on the Colorado is like way out here versus the riser that's just right there.
I gotcha.
So because the first time that I flew long, I reached to go get it and I can reach it, but you really got to stretch. So
You did work your way around the propeller.
yeah, no, I'm like, but
and that's a good thing that you talked about as far as like, coming in and using the Ds, right? So on really nice days, if you have the hours obviously under your belt, you want to try to come in differently, and try different things. And one of the things to try, obviously, if you got the skills and you got the time under your belt, is try to land using just the Ds.
yeah.
Obviously kite, reversing, using the D so you can kind of feel what it feels like using the D lines, right? And or the brake lines when you're ground handling. So when you're actually flying, you'll be able to feel the Ds, and kind of understand how much you need to pull. You don't want to pull too hard. You want to make sure that you're at least in neutral. You don't want to pull, D lines if you're, trimmed out. Obviously, I would say, work with your instructor or somebody like that if you're going to do something advanced like that. But it's worth your time to fly without holding on to your brake toggles. Reach up and make those turns and restow. Try to work with your D line slowly, obviously, because you don't want to do anything crazy. But in case something does happen, like Brian said, what happens if you do lose a brake? What happens if it just comes untied and now you got a line stringing behind you, right? You can still turn, you can still use your tip steering when you come in, grab your Ds and learn how to flare. The more you can do on your wing, ground handling and or flying will make you a really, really good pilot. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't want to do an SIV course because I just want to fly straight and land. I don't want to do any acro. Well, SIV courses aren't acro classes. They are what happens if this happens. How do you fix it? Like if you got a collapse, you might have to do an A-line, recollapse it so it does open up. So how many people have done an SIV clinic? How many people are going to continue to do SIV clinics every year? I want to. The more I do, the more of a better pilot I feel. And I feel like if something does happen, I know how to throw a reserve. I know how to come in under using the D lines in case I lose the toggles. It's very, very important to be able to understand what happens if you do have an asymmetric collapse. How do you fly an asymmetric? And you can collapse your half your wing, shift over to the inflated side and fly straight. And you don't understand that or feel that until you into an SIV clinic. I think that
And so you're saying an SIV clinic is a place to go to learn how to do things like that properly.
right, exactly. So, I knew somebody that went to an SIV clinic just to learn how to pull big ears.
Really? Well, they know
Exactly.
they're doing it right.
Exactly. And they feel safer doing it, than rather than having a motor on your back. So, have you done SIV clinics, Brian?
Yeah, I've been to 2. but it was a long time ago. And it was, I think, was in Arizona. It was at a real shallow lake. I'm trying to think of what, I can't remember the name. They're not out there anymore.
Right. When
But it
you
was
did your
it was
SIV
that lake.
clinic, did you feel like after the clinic you felt, wow, this wing wants to fly. It's hard to it's hard to collapse it. And if it does collapse, it's easy to fix it.
Yeah, the thing that blew me away was when we were out there, we did a stall, and I remember wrapping the brakes and literally sitting almost up and I still couldn't really get anything to happen. I'm like, he's like, come on, man. And I'm like, I'm literally like up there and I'm like, I'm trying. So, and then finally it went, and I was like, but yeah, it was an eye opener. What it made me realize. Now, I mean, I flew as a contractor, like helicopter, so like combat stuff, but like as a mercenary, not as a soldier, not as a U.S. veteran or anything like that. So I went through a lot of private, like serious military training. And what I learned in the military training is like, you have no idea at what you can put the stress forces of a helicopter through before it fails. And that is what I took away more than anything. I'm like, wow, what I thought was like pushing the envelope wasn't even scratching the surface. It's like when I would do stuff, when we used to live in New Bern, we lived across the street from the airfield. So my wife would see me do some really stupid stuff, like low to the ground, which was, I admitted it was stupid because it was low to the ground.
Right.
And she was like, you're going to kill yourself. And I'm like, I'm not even like making a click on the meat ability is of this equipment. So yeah, that was my thing, is like your security blanket gets really big because you're like, wow, this thing will take way more than what I typically want it to do.
Yes.
So it gave you confidence in your equipment that you
Oh
didn't.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
100%. Yeah. Yeah. All sorts of confidence. And that's a big thing too, is when you do have, when you are flying and you start flying to some crappy wind, right? You get some bumps and stuff. You know that you're going to bump, but you know that you're safe. Your wing is not going to spin out. It's not going to collapse, and you're not going to fall, to the ground. Your equipment can do so much more than what you probably even tried to put it through already.
And Andrew Fuller, I think, is running them in Florida. And then you got Max. I don't know if anybody's out on the West Coast, but you got Max Marion out there on the West Coast in California. I think he's in San Diego. He does a lot of that stuff out there. He just got back into it, but he was pretty well known out there.
Yeah, I go through Andrew Fuller.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think Robert trained with Max. I think, yeah, Max the one that trained my son, Robert.
Okay.
Yeah, Robert and paragliding talk on Thursday nights. Yeah, yeah. I think Max trained him. So yeah. And then and I think he did an SIV with Andy Fuller years ago. But yeah, man, I'm amazed when I see you guys do that stuff. That's scary. You got to be really strong. In watching you, Sean, when you did it that one was a couple years ago?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was cramping. I was trying to pull down and collapse my wing, and I was getting cramps in my shoulders and arms, and everything's like, really? That's like, why is this not collapsing? And I tell you what, after that first one, I was never afraid of my wings collapsing. I mean, it takes a lot to collapse a wing, and immediately they want to go right back out.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
amazing. I remember the cramps too. I remember when I was out there on a business trip, and I stayed like an extra week to do that. And I was doing triathlete training. And I remember, I mean, it's the desert, so it's really dry. And obviously, like, we're used to everything humid here on the East Coast. And I just remember getting up one morning and running like 12 miles, like the day before I did that. And just, of course, never drink enough water.
Right.
And just getting the Charlie horse, like the second or third time that I went up. And I was like, this. So it's like, I'm like, this just sucks. Like, because I was so focused on like the Charlie horse cramp. They're like, what do you like? I'm like, I'm okay. I just give me a minute. I'm like up there almost crying because I'm in so much pain, and I can't.
Yeah, that hurts.
No, and going through an SIV clinic, man, you wear yourself out.
Yeah.
Andy, what he does is like, for his fee, you go up from sun up to sundown half the time people couldn't make it past 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they just like, I can't do it. I'm just wore out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you wear
pay
out.
money to do this,
What's that?
and you pay money to wear yourself out like that.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, go to the gym, you're
Sure.
wearing yourself out, right? So
Yeah, Tony. I mean, the closest I come to acro is barrel rolls, and that's it. And so, yeah, I mean, the thought crosses my mind. He's asking about, do you ever worry about breaking lines if you pull too many G's? I mean, yeah, I won't say the thought hasn't crossed my mind, but I've never broken a line except for once I broke a B. I don't know how I did it.
wow.
I didn't do it. It broke at the malleon itself. You know, the little hoop
hmm
at the line, it just came off. So,
Wow.
but that's another reason to get your wing inspected and keep your lines in good shape.
Exactly.
Pulling a lot of G's, like Brian said, you want to do it more often.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you want to
you're-
have a wing that can pull G's without stretching the lines too. Isn't there a difference between the Dyneema and Kevlar cores as far as stretching?
The
Do you-
price. Yeah, there's a
So-
huge difference. Yeah.
So the Dyneema doesn't stretch, is that correct? Or it doesn't stretch as much as the
I don't
Kevlar?
think it stretches. Yeah, the Dyneema is a lot more resistant. Like I don't think it stretches as much. They all stretch, but I think you can put the Dyneema through a lot more aggressive maneuver before you wear it out. The Kevlar, because the Kevlar is just a triple sleeve Kevlar. So it's like the inner core. And this is something that a lot of people don't know about Kevlar. So the inner core of your lines, without that sheathing that's on there. So now there's unsheathed like lines, like the canopy lines, or we call them the oh my gosh, the BR lines. The I can't think of the name of them, like the technical name of them. But they have a wax coating on them. Raw Kevlar breaks down with oxygen. So like if you nick one of your A lines, those thick, sheathed lines, and you have raw Kevlar sticking out, the air is actually breaking down that Kevlar. So you need to replace that. So the unsheathed Kevlar lines on a glider have like a waxy feel to them. They're coated. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Like it's same thing with a bulletproof vest. Have you ever seen somebody like a police officer or a contractor, somebody gets shot? Have you ever seen a bulletproof vest with Kevlar coming out of it? You have your plates, like you have the dragon plates that you can put in there, and then you got the Kevlar. That's a one and done. If there's a round that goes through that or breaks that skin and that Kevlar is exposed, you're done.
The whole sheet of Kevlar is basically useless.
Yeah, because once the air gets in there, it's like cotton candy. Like when you put it in your mouth and the spit starts to break the cotton candy down. It's obviously a much slower process, but it's the same concept. It just starts to deteriorate and break down.
And the wax is the only thing that's protecting those upper lines.
Yeah, that's why at 150 hours, they try to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that they don't sheathe them, they sheathe them now on a lot of the gliders, but the reason that they didn't sheathe them is because it's a lot less drag, because you got all this extra wrapping of Kevlar. You got all these little, what do they call them? They call them the BR lines. I can't think of the technical name of them. But you got when they're all sheathed, it just creates a lot of drag.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason they're sheathing them is because they're using those Nitinol rods, which is the nickel titanium rods. So the rods change the dynamic of the airflow over the wing. So they're still able to get the speed and penetration, but they're able to use those sheathed lines to eliminate, so that you can basically put them through a little bit more rugged wear and tear before they start to break down.
Right.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it really after 10 o'clock? Man.
Yeah, it's 11
wait,
o'clock
man.
here. Matter of fact, I was going to say my wife just texted because she just got back from a business trip. So I was like, I'm going to probably have to hop off here.
Yeah.
I'm sure the kids will be up at 4.
Yeah.
Only a 3-hour podcast. That's not too bad, I guess. So we need to do more of these, I guess, especially during the wintertime. So anyway, yeah, thank you so much for
Yes.
joining.
Thanks, Brian.
Tell us
Absolutely.
more
Appreciate it.
about your school and how to get up with you, et cetera, et cetera. You're more than welcome to.
Yeah, and then I will post those links. I'll put those links on your chat. You can go to paraflightnc.com. You can go to macpara-usa.com has the inventory that I have here. I try to keep like $100,000 in inventory on hand. It's usually Charger 2s. There's always a Colorado 2 in there. So that if somebody needs something, it ships out right away. Colors, if they're not colored, I recommend if you got students that are, or people that are looking, just don't tell them anything about color. Just call me or look at the site, see what's available, and then tell them what's available. Because if you say, you know, there's blue, there's orange, then they want one specific color. And that's the one thing about MacPara is their colors are like, I feel like they've been stuck in 1980 for the last 20 years. But the inventory is on macpara-usa.com. And then I have, if you just type in Brian Goff Paramotor, there's a ton of videos out there for motors, for repair, maintenance, stuff like that. And I'm pretty, the gentleman earlier was like, he's like, yeah, you know, the frankness. And I'm like, I will shoot you straight from the hip. I will not BS you. And I will tell you, you know, exactly what you did or what you got. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And, you know, some people, that rubs people the wrong way. It's like, well, I've been a mechanic for this or that. I'm like, well, I've been doing this for 27 years and went through $250,000 in aviation to work on $30 million helicopters. So if you're calling me for a reason, so if you know what you're doing, don't waste my time. Don't call me. Figure it out.
Right.
What was the website again for the maintenance?
The maintenance stuff is just type in YouTube, just type in Brian Goff Paramotor.
Okay.
I have all those YouTube videos out there of the engine, and I haven't made one in a while. Like I have one for a carb rebuild. It's literally a step-by-step carb rebuild. Just like top end, middle, you know, the easy stuff. I don't have anything yet of me splitting crankcases because, like I said, when I do these classes, there's so many people there. It's just I need to get that footage. Like I need somebody that's going to actually like give me the footage so that I can edit it and go through it. Because it's like paparazzi. It's like, and you know, it'd be like terabytes of data to go through. So, but yeah, and then everything at the inventory, everything at the factory is also at that inventory on the MacPara usa.com. So if you want to see what's available at the factory, typically factory shipments are coming in every 2 to 4 weeks. So if it's at the factory and I order it for you, you send the payment, I pay them, and then when 2 to 4 weeks it's at my doorstep, and then I box it and ship it back out to you. Customs has been a nightmare. So I don't know if anybody follows, and not getting political, but with all the border people coming in from Mexico, they have removed a lot of our TSA agents that we deal with, and they have shipped them to Texas and to New Mexico to process illegal immigrants coming into the United States. So I had a shipment over the holidays because of all this going on with the border. 37 days it sat in customs because they had no agents. And the manager actually told me all of her people are in Texas and New Mexico processing immigrants.
Oh man, that's horrible.
So I cannot control that. So don't get mad at me because customs, there's nobody to clear your products through customs.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it took a long time for some stuff to get through Israel also.
Yeah.
Had a couple of people that bought some wings, and it took an awful long time.
Yeah.
Because they're just sitting in customs.
Yep. It's everywhere. And I mean, I don't know what the deal is if it was Israel itself, but the US is just absolutely horrible when you're dealing with international shipments. If people knew the steps and what you have to go through to bring in volume, because when we bring in shipments, we're bringing in, 80 to 150,000 per shipment. It is a logistic nightmare to deal with it.
Yeah, really.
So it is just, people just have no idea, because at the end of the day,
the shipper and the receiver.
it's usually it's just once it hits the United States. As soon as it gets into the country, that's when it becomes, it becomes Homeland Security, customs, the taxes. How are we going to tax that? It's now, so wings are now taxed as classified as textiles. It's fabric. So even though it says parachute, well, what kind of fabric is that? Well, it's Skytex material. Okay, well, we don't have a tax code for Skytex material. So can you give me something that's close to? So ripstop nylon, you know what I mean? So then they tax you for ripstop nylon. And then it's like, oh my God, it's a nightmare.
That's silly, man.
Yeah. We had shipments stuck for 32 days because the TSA agent that finally cleared it, she didn't know what a flight suit was. And I was like, ma'am, do you know what a baby onesie looks like? I was like, it's a onesie for an adult.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, okay.
Oh my gosh. I'm going through the same thing. I've ordered something from Sweden and it's supposed to be here in 2 days. And, week and a half later, it's still
Yeah.
sitting in a warehouse somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yep. That's where all my stuff is too, in Memphis, Louisville and Memphis. And the worst part is it there was one shipment of custom wings and it sat outside.
Oh
It
no.
got soaking wet.
Oh,
Wow,
no.
that's terrible.
Yep. And then it took 6 months to get the money because it sat for so long, it got wet and moldy.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah. And then it took 6 months to get the funds to get I ordered the rings again because of the insurance. But
Sure.
then, yeah. But I mean, imagine, you spend $4,000, $3,500, $4,000 for a wing. You wait 6 to 8 weeks. Customs sits it out in the rain for 3 weeks. And then you got to wait another 6 to 8 weeks for another wing.
Just makes you wonder what else is just sitting out in the rain.
Right? I know. It's like, it's insane. But anyway, but I appreciate it, guys. And like I said, I'll post those links. And if there's anything else that comes up, just put them in that message thread and I can respond to them when I get a minute.
All right.
Pleasure.
Sounds
Good.
great, Brian.
I also got all of your links down in the description below. So if anybody wants to check out his YouTube, his Facebook, or his flight school, just look down below. Also has his bio. So make sure you go over to his social medias and click like, subscribe, and bell notifications because, hopefully he's going to be putting up a lot of really cool stuff this year. I know during the wintertime, nobody really puts up much because it's so cold. Nobody flies, nobody does nothing. They hang with their family. So, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Brian, thank you so much. Definitely come back anytime, any Monday. You can be on our panel. Just come over and hang out with us.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome to.
All right. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Be safe.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night,
Take
everyone.
care. Have a
Have a
good
good
night.
one,
See you. Thanks again.
Good night.
All right. So that was really fun. It's 10:10, and
Okay.
I guess we'll say goodnight to everybody. We'll start with the sleepyhead Kevin that was falling aslip. And
I know, huh?
he was like, God, guys.
Oh, they ever start
Tired.
talking about paramotors?
At one time I thought he went,
I was listening. I wasn't falling asleep.
it's all right, no problem. But anyways, Kevin, thank you for hanging out with us, and can't wait for you to make it over here when it's not snowing,
That's going to be great.
or no tornadoes and no snow. So get some flights in us, of course.
Snow-nados.
Yeah, I know, right? When are you supposed to come over next?
Hopefully, hopefully next weekend, the 26th.
Okay.
Looking at that
Hopefully it's
week.
warm. Hopefully it's not rainy and windy, and we'll find out for sure.
Supposed to be up in the 60s.
Wow, much better than now where it's like 10
Yeah.
with snow and ice.
Yeah. 14 here right now.
Brr.
Getting there.
This global warming is so
Getting
cold.
there.
Yes.
Oh my God. I didn't leave at all. I could have probably, my friend wanted to come pick me up, come on, let's go to the college, let's go walk, and I was like, I'm not going outside today. It's okay. You go ahead.
That's what phones are for.
Today was the
Yeah.
inside day. Watching movies, taking naps,
Uh,
for
yeah.
sure. Probably
Watch the
tomorrow
snow
too.
pile up. It's great. Yeah.
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 So Kevin, thanks again. Can't wait for you to come over here and do some videos, right?
Yes, I enjoyed it. Or I enjoy it.
Sounds
So
good.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Got Paramom USA from paramotoring-related.com that goes to a really cool page that has
Yeah.
all her different social media links on it. So you definitely want
Yes.
to go there. It used to go to her Facebook page, but now it goes to her super special awesome page that has all
It
her
is a
social
super
media.
special, awesome page. It is. I
Mhm.
like how you did all that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate my chatters tonight. Thanks for hanging with us. I don't know who's all still there. I know you mentioned Tony, Mr. Vegas, and thank you, Mr. Vegas, for sitting with us and everything. hang with us. And we learned a lot. I appreciate y'all. And make sure you join us next Monday, same time, same place. We got an awesome guest next week, and that is Kenny Shatner. I always say the name wrong. He's going to be our guest next week. So I'm pretty excited about that. Ryan said that he would he's probably going to hang out with us next week too. So it'll be Ryan Ross said he'll probably be hanging with us next week. So
Tony Marzano wants to know if there's a show tomorrow.
Yes.
oh
there
yes,
is
yes,
a
Will.
show
Yes.
Tomorrow at 8 p.m. You can go to ppgshane.com. It'll take you right there. And it's called Tuesday Night Hangout. So we may talk paramotors, we may talk politics. You don't know what we're going to talk about because I don't. So
Yeah.
we'll find out
Yeah.
together.
That was fun last week. Yeah, it was a fun show.
If you want to check out my videos, you can go to my channel. It's Corny Humor and paramotor videos, whatever. Just go to willflyppg.com. Thanks to
.com.
PPG Grandpa. And you all
Yeah.
didn't know that, but I got my willflyppg.com from winning something on the spinning wheel, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long, long time ago. I think
Yeah.
Time ago.
we all got our little .coms and stuff. I don't do that no more because that cost me hundreds of dollars to do that, but I had so much fun. So it was
We
awesome.
appreciate you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
If you can't find me, you can always find me in the chat all week long because I follow everybody. So where's Linda? Oh, well, just look in the chat. She's in there somewhere on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
We went down to 7 viewers. Now it's up to 9 viewers. That's crazy. So
Uh-oh.
they're like,
Oh,
hey,
some
we're
people
here.
got their second win. They heard,
Yeah.
you know why?
That's
They heard
because it's
me.
next Monday already.
Yeah, yeah.
It's time to start over.
Oh, way too
Almost.
much fun.
Oh
All
my
right,
God.
so we'll see you next Monday, episode 203, season 5, Kenny
Schnatter.
Schnatter.
I always say it wrong. Yeah.
And then the next Monday will be episode 204 with Derek Weir.
Uh-huh.
So we got a lot of people lined up, and we're also going to be doing another podcast. We're going to be doing another podcast. Something else is coming up. We got more partnerships, and something's really going to be cool as far as like we are going to be making our, I don't know if I can say this or not, but I think we can. We're going to be making our own paramotors. So we're going to be talking about that with another episode that's not Clear Prop TV. It's going to be something totally different, but it's going to go right after this. So from 7 to 8, 7 to 7:55 we'll be doing this one, and then at 8 o'clock until 9 we'll be doing the second podcast. So that's how we're going to be doing that. We were going to do that today, but we weren't able to get the other people to do that. But yeah, we're going to be making our own paramotors very soon, and that's going to be one of the least expensive things that you'll be able to buy, and it's going to be warranted, which is going to be really awesome. But anyways, we'll talk about that later.
Sounds exciting.
It is going to be really exciting. Can you imagine getting a brand new paramotor for, well, I'm not even going to say the price because it's so inexpensive. You'd be like, is that used? No, brand new. And it's not AliExpress from China either.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Have to do a shout out. Happy birthday, Robert. I'll see you on Thursday.
Oh, it's Robert's birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
He's actually, oh, see my kitty. There's my kitty. She's like, come on, let's go, Mom. Yeah, he's got church the next 3 nights. So I've been kind of like multitasking, watching it on my phone. And as I told him, I would keep an eye on things because I'm like the PR, for his church too. So I stay in the chat and keep all the creepers out.
PR for everybody. And also too,
am.
Kevin had a birthday. So happy birthday, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yes, happy birthday.
Wait, today's your birthday?
No, the 9th was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, man. I didn't know that. Yes, I did. I wished you happy birthday.
Yeah.
I said happy birthday, Kevin.
Yeah.
Strike that.
Yeah.
From the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sleepy?
I think Grandpa is because he's taking all his clothes off. To get undressed.
No, it's getting warm in here. I had the heater going on in the room, so it got really warm in here. It's like 10 degrees outside and it's like 100 degrees inside.
Look at it's so funny, Molly. She's just like, okay, are we done yet?
We
She's been
are.
really
So
good
you guys
tonight.
have a great week. Don't forget tomorrow,
Yep.
PPG Shane. Is Jade still doing hers on Wednesday?
Yes, 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 yes.
Paramotorgirl.com on
Yes.
Wednesdays. Thursdays, Robert Michaels, paraglidingtalk.com. Fridays is Scuba Steve's, paramotordude.com. Man, I know way too many .coms. This is
You do.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if you want to find me, you can always find me at runtothesky.org or iflyparamotors.com. Anything else before we say goodbye to everybody?
That's it.
All right.
That's it.
We'll
Thank
see
you so much,
tomorrow.
everybody.
See if I can do another heart. Heart. Do the heart thing.
Good luck.